It's 7 o'clock. So I want to welcome everyone and I want to call the meeting to order. Mr. Town Manager, could you please read the disclaimer?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just a reminder to everybody that this meeting is being recorded. So we will post this on the town website for folks to watch at a later date if they're not able to log in tonight. If you could please state your name and the organization that you represent or street that you live on for the record before you speak. I've tried to go through and change people's names, but I may message you if there's some error or if I have some question about your name on there as well. If for whatever reason this meeting gets interrupted, we'll quickly end it and send out instructions on rejoining. Hopefully, knock on wood, that won't be the case. But with that, I turn it back over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And at this point, I will now call on our distinguished chair of the Board of Supervisor Elections, Sherry Bindeman Khan, as the board will receive nominations for 3 council positions for the election to be held on May 25th. Madam Chair.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sherry Bindeman, Essex. Yes, so we are now, the Board of Supervisors of Elections is now accepting nominations for the 3 council seats that will be voted on at the May election. If you have a nomination, please raise your hand and I'll be happy to call on you.
Like Matt Zaft has raised his hand.
Okay, Matt, go ahead.
If you unmute yourself, Matt.
Thank you. One of these days we'll figure it out. Matthew Zaft, Dorset Avenue, and I would like to nominate Kabir Kumar from Trent Street for the town council. A very well-respected husband, father, swim team member, and just an overall good man that I think will really serve this community well, bring a lot of really good ideas to the council, represent many different people in different areas and different walks of life, and really bring a lot of value to the council. So I give him my full support and really recommend him and nominate him.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you.
Matt, do you want to let me know? Let's see. Just want to make sure that, okay, Council Member Barr.
All right, well, I'm waiting. Maybe we should offer a chance for a second for Kabir first.
Well, that's up to the chair.
I'd be happy to second the nomination of Kabir Kumar.
I'm sorry. I'm new at this. I'm sorry if I'm not following the procedures that are usually done.
You're in charge, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, so the nomination has been made and seconded. And Mr. Kumar, if you'd like to say anything, we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Matt, and thank you, Franny. I'm very, very excited at the opportunity to participate in this election. The outcome is unclear, but I look forward to sharing my ideas. I look forward to engaging with everyone in the town. My wife and I and my family have made a home here since 2011. We love this community. It's, as I mentioned in my note to the email list, it's been a great source of comfort, energy, and renewal for us, especially this past year. I believe that we need more voices on the council that represent young families. I think we have many young families in town who intend to be part of this town and be part of this community for decades. And I believe that their voice needs to be heard, and I hope I can be that voice.
Thank you. We have our first nominee now, Council Member Barr.
Yes, I'd like to nominate Jack Frink for council position. Jack is a longtime member of the Environment Committee and also of the Audit Committee of the town. He served the Environment Committee well and participated in some of our major achievements over the years, including the rain garden at the town of Somerset. As an audit committee member, he has a very full understanding of the budget. In addition to that, Jack has been a loyal attender at council meetings for a whole number of years and participates in many different committees. So, Jack, thank you.
Thank you. I
I'd
actually,
like to second that.
okay, thank you, Councilmember Sturkle. Now, Mr. Frink, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, I'm honored to be nominated, but first I want to thank the outgoing council members for their many, many years of service. Marty and I have worked together for years on the LEDs and on many other things in town, and I consider all three of them friends. Barbara Zuckhauser is walking the neighborhood. I see her a lot, and Franny has done a fantastic job in rewriting the code and getting things modernized in the town. And I want to thank them. I'm looking forward to working with the existing two council members, and we'll enjoy meeting Kabir and anyone else that's nominated. I think we want to have a fun election, and I hope it's not uncomfortable. I think it'll be a wonderful time for everyone. So,
Thank you very much. Are there any other nominations?
Julie Greenberg has raised her hand.
Ms. Greenberg?
Thank you. Julie Greenberg on Fallstone Avenue, and I want to nominate for the town council Debbie Heller, also on Fallstone Avenue. Debbie is one of the first people I met in Somerset, 32 years ago? And I bet there's a good share of the community that can say the same thing. She has been a stalwart in all ways, just a natural connector socially. And she's always been a good citizen, giving back to the community. I don't even know how many committees you've been on, but she's just committed to Somerset as a neighborhood, as a community, in every sense of the word. And I just can't think of a better person to serve on the council.
Thank you.
I'd like to second that nomination.
I have 2 seconds, but thank you, Matt Staff. I heard you first. Now, Ms. Heller, would you like to say something?
Yes. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Franny, for seconding me. You know, I have been in this town for a long time. I don't want to admit how long, because it really dates me. But I do have 3 children that grew up here. They are 39, 37, and 33. I came to this town because a very long time ago, my husband and I came to swim in the pool because we knew one of the town members. And I turned to him then and I said, I want to live here. And he goes, okay. So it took a few more years until somebody told somebody who told somebody, and I can tell you who those people are actually, that there was a house for sale on Fallstone Avenue. So I called the woman who owned it. I said, I hear you're going to sell your house and I'd like to buy it. And she said she was trying to get some money to keep it, but if she couldn't, she'd sell it to me. So 3 weeks later, she sold it to me. And I've never looked back on that. I have always loved this community. I've worked hard to connect people, to be there for people. And I think one of my strengths as a council member will be that I think more globally. I don't have an issue. I don't have a group. I really want to represent the people. And I hope that I can dance in all the different arenas and be fair and open-minded. And I look forward to this. I've considered this before and always kind of shied away. And now I'm ready. And I hope I will get everybody's support. And I look forward to meeting Kabir, who I don't know, and Jack, and working with the other council members. And of course, I want to thank the 3 outgoing council members, because one of the things is that I've always considered myself a super volunteer, and I've always had an incredible respect for volunteers. So thank you. Thank you, lovely ladies. And I look forward to calling upon you for advice. So thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any more nominations? I don't see any hands. Matt, do you see any?
Nope, not at this time.
Okay, well, with that, I want to thank the chair, the distinguished chair of the board, for the incredible work that she and the board have done these past few months, in particular meeting at the last minute today for a few minor changes to be suggested to an item much later tonight. And the work that you put in, I also want to, of course, thank our manager and town attorney for all their efforts as we bring our Board of Elections procedures into the 21st century. So with that, thank you very much. And we will now move on to our public comment period. So I would like to remind anyone who wishes to speak, and Matt will let me know who's raising their hand, to please state your name and your street, any resident or guest. Has anyone indicated they wish to speak, Mr. Town Manager?
Not at this, oh, yes, actually, I'm sorry. We have Lucy Freeman who's raised her hand.
Okay,
Yes.
who is a member of the Board of Elections.
Yes,
Supervisors
okay.
of Elections.
So it's Lucy Freeman on Fallstone Avenue. And I don't know if I should mention this now or if this is going to be coming up later in the agenda. I was wondering, when talking about the pool, what were the utility costs in October to operate the pool? You know, that would be gas for heating and electricity.
Lucy, are you able to attend when the item comes up, or?
Okay, sure. I didn't know if that would come up later on, so I was bringing it up now.
It's coming, it's on the agenda for tonight, and you will have the opportunity to ask the question. Is that?
Sure. Okay.
Does that meet your schedule?
That makes my schedule.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Jeffrey.
Okay, thanks a lot. Mr. Town Manager, is there anybody else?
Not at this time, no.
Okay, thank you. The next item is the approval of the agenda as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? I see Zoighauser first. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you. The next item is consideration of the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
I would like to take one item off the consent agenda, which is the chapter resolution, but I would move the first 2 items.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second? I see Zoighauser. So, Madam President, when would you like us to place this item on the agenda? At the end of the agenda, or?
Maybe tomorrow night, you and I could talk about it.
Oh, tomorrow night. So I think, Mr. Town Attorney, wouldn't the appropriate motion to be to table that item to a time certain?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, or tabling requires a motion to remove from the table. So as you just noted, we could just have a motion to move it to tomorrow's agenda rather than tabling it.
Move to defer the resolution to the agenda.
Okay, but hold on a second. We're still, this is still discussion about the motion on the floor. Is there any other discussion on the motion to approve the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you. Now, I would like to entertain a motion regarding item C on the consent agenda.
I'd like to move item C to tomorrow evening's meeting as the last agenda item.
Thank you. And I think Councilmember Barr was seconding that. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, all those opposed, and Council President Shaw and I will determine when that will be on tomorrow night's agenda, and we will send you an updated one as soon as possible. Thank you. The next item, public hearing motion to consider approval of an apiary pilot study, including a memorandum of understanding with Sarah Keel, a member of the Montgomery County Beekeepers Association, to maintain an apiary in the wooded area off of Wisconsin Avenue, and the expenditure of up to $500 for the purchase of materials to construct a fence and signage surrounding the bee boxes as recommended by the Environment Committee. Mr. Town Manager, would you please present this?
Sure. So as the mayor indicated, this was a request from the town's Environment Committee, and they had written a memo for the council talking about some of the positive environmental impacts of bees and pollinators, and some of the environmentally related issues that have caused havoc on their habitats. I have had the opportunity through Environmental Committee Chair Barton Rubenstein to meet with Sarah Keel, who has generously offered to maintain the apiaries on behalf of the town. And so I will turn it over to Sarah in just a moment. But the gist of it is that Sarah has offered to bring some of her bees and to take care of them in bee boxes on town property across from Capello Park on the other side of Dorset Avenue in the wooded area, where it would be sort of away from children, away from people playing in the park area. And the town would construct a small fence. And I've spoken with our maintenance staff, and they have said that they were able and capable to do that. Their only request was, please let us do that before the bees put in. But in any case, the bee boxes themselves would be behind the gate, which would be locked at all times. There would be 2 copies of a key to enter that area, which would be controlled, one by the town and the second by Sarah and her husband. So anybody who wanted to enter that area, and I don't know off the top of my head what necessarily would be the reason to do that, would have to get permission through either the town or through Sarah. I don't know, Barton, if I maybe we'll turn it over to you first to see if there's anything.
Well,
I'm sorry.
let's have Sarah comment, and then
Sure.
we can have Barton just as a resource. But
sure.
One thing I want to say in terms of the process here, as you recall, this item was not placed on the agenda at the last work session. But after that, 3 council members requested that it be placed on the agenda. So I want everyone to know that we then engaged the town attorney and Matt to meet with Sarah Keel to create a memorandum of understanding about this project. And I believe copies were provided to the council. Is that right? Yeah. So just so you all know, in case you have any questions about that. And so now let's have Sarah comment or add anything she'd like, and then we'll take questions from the council. So thank you, Sarah, for taking your time and getting involved and making this lovely offer. And is there anything you wanted to add to Matt's report or anything in the MOU that you might want to clarify?
Well, I'm not very good at this, so I do apologize. I appreciate you
you're good at
opening
it.
up your town to us to promote the pollinators and the environment that you've already put in place for no pesticides, I think is pretty amazing. We do have a huge problem with the decline of the honeybee and a lot of the native bees that we have around the area. And so this is a great opportunity, and I think it's awesome that you guys are hosting this apiary pilot program.
Well, thank you so very much. Council President Shaw, do you have any questions? You're muted, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Thank
no
you.
questions. Thank you very much for coming, Sarah.
Okay, thank you. Council Member Zoidhauser.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Council Member Peel.
Yes, I have a question. I think it's for Ron though, on the
Please.
MOU.
Please.
And for Matt, I just wanted to make sure, I wondered if we could, I feel like the MOU just referred to the bee boxes going in Capello Park, and I found that confusing because I don't really know how far Capello Park goes, but I thought that that was the area near the town hall and near the basketball courts, which I know we specifically had not chosen for this project. And it sounds like from Matt's introduction that we are in fact planning to put it in the woods back behind the pool, but I was not sure that that was called Capello Park, and I just wondered if we could just clarify that. I know it's sort of a technicality, but
No, yeah, it's a good point.
Question.
And
go ahead, Mr. Town Attorney.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it's a good point. So right now, the use agreement provides that the apiaries will be in a designated area. So it would probably be a good idea to attach a site plan showing,
yeah, I would like that.
showing where it would be. And
The environmental committee presentation specifically referred to this going in near the basketball courts, which is what had me a little concerned because I recognize that might not have been updated to reflect our sort of agreement on this, but between that and the MOU referring to Capello Park, I was left unclear as to where we had ended up with this, and I would really prefer to see maybe not exactly where this is going, but to have a very strong sense of where in the neighborhood this is going, because I think when we publicize this, it would be helpful if we could do some kind of a small scale map that we could put in the town journal that really shows where this is. People who might be concerned about this, I think, would be relieved if they could see where we are thinking about putting this.
So I think that Councilor Peel is asking whether that diagram can be added to the MOU. Is that right?
yes, well,
Okay.
and
So
it can be. I've just added to the second paragraph after it says in a designated area, which will be enclosed by a fence and gate to be constructed by the town. I've added as depicted on the attached plan, Exhibit A, and we will
okay,
attach it.
Councilor President Shaw, we'll come back to you as soon as.
Oops, the map.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could also add that
Yeah, please do.
this agreement was drafted in the same manner as the use agreement for the Black Lives Matter Little Library. But one thing I might suggest the council consider adding here is because this agreement calls for the licensee to indemnify the town for claims that result from bee stings, and because she's already, donating up to 6 apiaries, we don't want to perhaps require her to obtain an insurance policy. So maybe the town council wants to make that a requirement and to agree to cover the cost of the insurance policy.
Okay, thanks for adding that.
Can I ask
Also,
a question about that, please?
of course, it's your time now.
Thank you. I just wonder, Ron, if you could explain this. I see that Matt has gone back and talked to Legit and gotten some advice about labeling and everything. I think that's good. But my understanding was that we had some immunity protection for activities that take place in the parkland, and I wasn't sure why we would need an indemnification agreement from the beekeeper. I mean, I think she's not going to be there on a daily basis to prevent things from happening. And so, it does seem like it would be a big ask to ask her to indemnify us.
So, yeah, I did not speak to legit. I might need Matt to help out with this response, but generally speaking, the town has limited liability as a result of the Local Government Tort Claims Act,
Right.
which provides that there's a cap on, how much a town employee or town agent could be sued for which the town would be liable. And the town maintains insurance
Right.
that provides coverage for that liability and excess liability as well. Now, it's always possible for a plaintiff's attorney to try and argue that the indemnity caps should not apply. And sometimes there are such claims with respect to proprietary functions, including maintenance of parks. It's not an issue that I've looked at recently, but we've talked before about liability with respect to sledding. And I believe there was a case in Washington County. Well, I have to go back and look. I don't want to just
Maybe,
speak off the
maybe
top of my
before-
head. There is a risk that the
Yeah.
Tort Claims Act could not apply.
Could I ask, Sarah or
Yes,
Sarah
please
and
do.
Matt,
Please.
is there sort of an industry standard for the fencing that would go around something like this? Is there a height or something like that that you would recommend in terms of of what you've seen out in the field before, Sarah?
I'm looking at that you really don't need anything bigger than a 12 by 16 fencing. And what would you say, 4 feet? Is really the height that you would need. That's really just to keep anybody from getting around the bees, and it just protects the bees.
Right. Well, I can
So
see.
the
how that-
bees will be, I'm sorry.
I'm glad that would protect the bees. I think that sounds like a good baseline, but I'm trying to now think about what might keep the people out so we could avoid any unnecessary exposure for accidents. So I'm
So,
curious, yeah.
so the fence, if it's 4 feet, Barton had showed us a fence that he had looked at that he thought was appropriate to present, and it would be, it's enough for, you would hope that nobody would go around it or over it. And if the gate's locked, then
4 feet doesn't sound very tall for me when I'm picturing that out in the field in terms of keeping people out. And I guess if 4 feet is sufficient to keep the bees safe, or is there any objection to having it taller from your point of view? I mean, okay.
not at all.
So that would be up to Matt and Ron and Legit.
I mean, if the town would like it higher, the fence higher, that's fine. I'm okay. I mean, it doesn't affect the bees.
That's what I hear from you.
And if it protects, if it causes a more of an ease of mind for family members and those coming around to look at the bees, I think what's suitable for the town is what's important.
Yeah, I guess I'd like
Okay.
to ask if we could look into that, maybe get some advice.
Okay,
on that.
Councilor Raphael, I know you had a concern about the fence, and I'm not sure that the town manager and the town attorney explained about the fence and what would be required by the best practice. Because the town, I don't want to put words in the town attorney's mouth, but he's recommended that the town erect the fence.
No, I did read that, Jeffrey, and I'm really more just asking if we could keep an eye on picking out a fence that keeps people out, I mean, when my kids were little, they were in the woods by themselves all the time. A 4-foot fence is not going to stop kids who want to
So
go.
maybe Sarah can make a recommendation based on your concern. What would
I
be
think
the
she's saying-
appropriate height of the fence?
I think she's saying she doesn't have a recommendation on that because she just said she was referring to the height that would protect the bees. So I think we need to get maybe some advice.
well,
If
let's-
Bart can help with this.
Or we could ask the town attorney to what he recommends.
That's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Okay. So, Mr. Town Attorney, I take it based on this excellent question that you and Matt will determine what is the most appropriate fence height.
Yeah, perhaps a phone call to the Department of Agriculture for a recommendation as to.
So that could be,
Best
that
practice.
could be in the motion. That could be in the motion. Okay, thank you. Council Member Circo, do you have any questions?
Thank you. Sarah, can you talk about your beekeeping and whether what sort of fencing you use in other locations and whether you've had any issues with people and your beehives?
So I have not had any issues with my beehives and anybody getting stung or people trying to get near the hives. I currently don't have any that are on another property. So I haven't had to worry about fencing them in. The hives that I have are in my front yard and they're 20 feet from the sidewalk. And I have not had any problems with anybody getting stung or having a desire to come up and touch the hives or mess around with them. When we have looked at relocating the bees to different sites, we encouraged putting a fence around them to protect the hives from others trying to get to the boxes and creating a problem with the bees. Currently, there's no industry standard for fencing for beehives. I think it's what best suits, like for your town, there was a legit concern from the young lady that spoke earlier, and I apologize, I don't remember her name, that, you know, as high as the town would like it is fine.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Barr, do you have any questions? Unmute, sir.
Right. Just really to thank Sarah for what you're doing. I really appreciate it. I'm sure the honeybees appreciate it too, because there's a real problem across our country in collapse of bee colonies. And so anything that we can do to help them, they are our best pollinators. So thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Mr. Town Manager, has any resident or guest indicated? Oh, I'm sorry, second round, Council President Shaw.
Wanted to mention that in our town handbook guide, the map shows the location as being Vinton Park. So thank you, Franny, for raising that.
Is that your only question?
I just wanted to share that.
Council Member Zoighauser, did you have any more
I
questions?
just want to double check with Matt. We talked about that, the fact that you were going to check with the homeowners that are closest to the beehives. I assume that's been done.
Yeah,
And they were all okay with it?
yeah. Nobody's raised any issues about it.
Great, thank you so much.
Councilor Pio, on second round, do you have a question?
I mean, I think this is just something that we should make sure we have in place as soon as possible, so that when we publicize it, we can say, you know, we're putting in this beehive and these are the important and great reasons for doing it. But for anybody who might be concerned, you know, here's where it's located and here are the safety measures that we put into place. Like, I think they should be publicized at the same time, just to allay any concerns people might have. Like, let's figure out exactly where it's going to be and what kind of fence we're going to put in, so that when we describe it, we can describe it with both sets of information. I just think there may be some people who would be worried about this, and I think it's important to, like I said, to publicize it for all of the good environmental reasons that we're doing this, but also to explain the thought that has gone into this and the safety measures that we are building into the project. So
you might, when it's time for the motion, you might want to build in some of those concerns into the motion. So do you have any
I
other
think
questions?
People involved have heard me say what I'm saying. All I'm trying to recommend at this point, since we're going around the room again, is
Well,
just
we're going around the room again with questions.
Well, I
So-
don't know whether this needs to be in the motion. I'm just saying that before Matt actually works with Sarah and putting, this beehive out, and before Barton writes any articles saying this is happening, I would just ask that along with that publicity, that there also be a good solid description of where the beehive is going to be and the type of fence involved, so that people who might be worried about it can be.
Okay, well, you'll have an opportunity to add all that good stuff when there's discussion after the motion.
Okay.
Thank you. Council Member Circa, do you have any further questions on second round?
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Barr.
And no further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Town Manager, has any resident or guest indicated a desire to speak on this agenda item?
Yeah, there was one question that maybe Sarah and Barton can speak to. It's not something that I had mentioned quite yet. Is in the proposal, there was a discussion about educational opportunities that went along with the installation of the bee boxes. And I don't know how far along in those conversations you've gotten, or if there's anything specific that you were thinking, but that was one of the questions that somebody submitted to me.
And if I could add to what Matt said, I understand Legit had recommended that if there are going to be programs, that the town obtain releases from program participants. So attached to the use agreement is a proposed release that program participants would have to sign before participating.
Okay, thank you. Sarah or Mr. Chair, would you like to respond to the question?
Go ahead, Sarah.
So oh, sorry.
Please go ahead.
Sarah, go ahead. Sarah, go ahead.
So I think there's a lot of different ways to actually do education on the bees. Sometimes, you can sort of cage in a frame and bring it where it's not going to be harmful to any of the children. If you had it in, like, let's just say you decided to have a presentation out in the park, in the green area, and you could bring the frames, you could bring a box, you could show them what a bee apiary looks like without having the kids have to actually go and create a concern for families to the bee yard, if you wanted to, in that sense too.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, Environment Committee Chair, do you wish to add anything?
I just would like to support Sarah's comment and just say that there's a lot of opportunity for the town residents to learn about bees, whether it's on site or off site with a bee box, like Sarah just mentioned. I think the town attorney's idea of, having that waiver is probably smart. But I think that there's such a great opportunity to learn about bees, and I'm just really pleased that the council members are considering this tonight.
Thank you. I take it, Mr. Town Manager, there are no further comments or questions.
That's all. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Council, are you prepared to make a motion?
Hi there, this is Steve. I'd like to make a motion that we approve this proposal. I expect that some of my colleagues might have some amendments or modifications, but I recommend that we approve this proposal.
Is there a second? Okay, so it sounds like someone would like to add an amendment. Councilmember Shaw, did you wish to add did you want to? Oh, Councilor Appeal, did you want to add an amendment? And you're muted, by the way.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I guess as it's written on the agenda tonight, it's listed as being in Capello Park. So I would ask that we make the ministerial change of fixing that to Vinton Park in the MOU, and that we attach, as Ron proposed in the draft, that we attach an addendum that shows the proposed location. And that that when we look into fencing installed by the town, that we prioritize safety of the residents.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Town Attorney, can I consider that to be a friendly amendment
Yes, Mr.
to
Mayor.
the motion, so we don't have to vote separately? Okay, so Councilor Circo made the motion, seconded by Council President Shaw, as amended, as friendly amended by Council Member Peel. Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you. Thank you to the Environment
Thank you all.
Committee. Thank you to, is Sarah still here?
I'm here.
Thank you so much, Sarah. We look forward
Thank
We look
you.
forward to working with you, and don't ever tell anyone that you don't know how to make a presentation, because you did beautifully.
Thank you so much.
Okay, see you soon.
Thank you.
Okay, next, public hearing motion to consider approval of mayor's testimony in support of Pepco multi-year rate plan and proposed LED streetlight conversion, and to recommend an independent review of costs at a public hearing scheduled for April 15th before the Maryland Public Service Commission. Madam President.
At the work session, we actually discussed written testimony that was presented. My package didn't actually have that version. It just had the summary. But I would move that we support the mayor's testifying in front of the Public Service Commission in favor of the conversion of streetlights.
I'll
So
second it.
that's no, that's the presentation. Thank you. Then we're going to do questions, and then we have to have a hearing.
Okay.
So you're supporting this idea. Council Member Zoe Kaiser, do you have any questions? You're muted, I think.
No questions. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you. Council Member Peel,
No questions.
Council Member Circo.
No questions.
Thank you. Council Member Barr.
I'll just add to what Marnie said. The one thing that we're mentioning here is that we're seeking an independent cost estimate for the costs of the conversion to LED lights, because Pepco is basing their rates on the costs. And at the moment, we only have their own estimates, which are exactly that, their only estimates. So we should get independent cost, audited costs off it before the rates are determined.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Town Manager, has any resident or guest indicated a desire to speak on this agenda item?
Not at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Council, are you prepared to make a motion, Madam President?
I move that the council support the mayor's testifying in front of the Public Service Commission in favor of the conversion by Pepco of streetlights to LED streetlights, and I'm adding the independent estimate of costs.
Is there a second? Is there, I see Circo first. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you very much. And thank you, Madam President, for your incredible work on that item. The next item, public hearing motion to consider approval of a license agreement with Pepco to install an electric vehicle charger at the Somerset Town Hall and Tennis Court parking lot, and reserving 2 spaces for vehicles to use the charger. Mr. Town Manager.
Tammy Watkins is not here at the moment, so I
Should we
can
go to
try
the
to
next-
reach out to her if we want to. If
Do
we
you
want
want, do you want to text her and we'll go to the next item?
That's what I was gonna suggest.
Okay, thank you. The next item, public hearing motion to consider an amendment to the town budget and addendum to the existing contract with American Pool in the amount not to exceed $17,000 to provide maintenance and lifeguard coverage at the town pool for an extension of the pool season from May 8th to May 22nd, 2021, and to approve use of the town pool for lifeguard training as recommended by the town pool committee. Mr. Town Manager, I do note that we are 25 minutes in advance of this item, but I think it will not be done. It will not be completed within 5 minutes, and so there'll be time for public testimony. So please start presenting it in the interest of time.
Sure. The pool committee had originally requested that the town pool open at the beginning of May, and I think based on some of our budget discussions, we had considered opening a couple of weeks early as a compromise for that. We may have Tammy Watkins on the line. I don't know if we want to go back to that or keep moving.
Is that her 24035?
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
we have you.
Hi.
Thanks.
All right.
Hi, Tammy. Thank you.
All right. Is it?
Having some technical difficulties.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Watkins. So let me ask the council, is it agreeable to go back to item 4? Is that acceptable? Madam President, is that acceptable? Okay, thank you. So we're going to go, sorry for the confusion. Thank you so much, Tammy Watkins from Pepco, for making yourself available tonight for this item, which has already been announced, and I will turn it over to the town manager to present.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Tammy Watkins for taking the time to be here with us this evening. Tammy can probably give a better rundown than I can, but the long and short of it is that Pepco has made available a program to do community investments to put up electric vehicle charging stations throughout its service area, free of charge to municipalities and other communities. So the installation of the charging stations would be done on Pepco's dime, so to speak, and the only cost to the town, in fact, there would be no cost to the town. The people that charge their vehicles would charge it the same way that you would put gas in your car at a gas station. And after some back and forth, Pepco had presented the town hall parking lot behind the town hall, behind the tennis courts, as a good place to put in some electric vehicle charging stations. And I think their original proposal was to put in 2 different charging stations, each which would require 2 parking spaces, so a total of 4. I think after some discussion, the council had moved more in the direction of considering 1 charging station, 2 spots. But Pepco has done the homework, figured out where they can get the lines to connect it. There are a few tweaks that they would require of the town in terms of making the signage clearer that the charging stations are available to the general public. But otherwise, I think that generally covers it. And I don't know if Tammy wants to add anything to that.
Thank you. First, let me apologize to everybody. I had some technical difficulties with my internet and it just didn't seem to want to work. So I apologize that I'm joining by phone. So if there's anything being projected or if the council's looking at anything, I apologize.
No, not to worry, Tammy. Thank you for making yourself available.
No, thank you very much. Matt's assessment is fairly accurate and complete. We would very much like to make these facilities available to the public in Montgomery and Prince George's County. We know that public charging, there's an increased interest in this as people are purchasing more electric vehicles. we have an opportunity to support the backbone for the construction of these facilities in the county. And this location in Somerset is really optimal, we believe, for both Pepco and the city. As Matt stated, our interest was to install 2 chargers for 4 spaces, but we have discussed this with council members and we've discussed this with staff, and I think the town would like to proceed with just 1 charger for 2 spaces, and that's fine. We can revise our prospectus. Along with the plan for the 1 charger, we also presented to the town a draft license agreement. If you've had a chance to look at it, I'm happy to answer any questions. We can certainly work with the town of Somerset to modify that agreement as needed. There is a condition with the program that the public charging facilities must be installed in areas that are open to the public. And we did notice that the parking lot does have signage up indicating that the parking lot is for private use, mostly restricted for either town hall activities or the tennis courts. And we think we can still work with that. What we would ask that the town consider is the installation of a sign that would basically say, the parking lot's closed except for electric vehicle charging, because we would like to be able to offer our chargers at all hours of the day for the public. That is basically the rundown. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you. We will be running through the council and public hearing. Mr. Town Attorney, could you comment on whether the requests of Pepco can be accommodated?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, the town is able to enter into this agreement. I've taken a look at the agreement and would just like to highlight some points for the council's consideration. It's basically a 20-year agreement that the town would not be able to terminate early. The agreement provides that the town would not be able to install improvements or plantings in a manner that might interfere with the equipment. So it would be important to take a look at a site plan and to make sure the town didn't have any future desire to install improvements or plantings in the area that Pepco would need to place its equipment and lines. Upon termination, Pepco would remove the above grade portions, but would not remove any below grade portions of the equipment. That would stay in the ground as currently written. And you might want to talk about what the consideration is available for the town. If Pepco's charging customers to receive electricity, then maybe the town should be receiving some consideration for allowing Pepco to set up this operation. That might be something that the council wants to consider.
Do you want to? Is that a question you're posing to Tammy?
No, I'm not posing a question per se. Just highlighting some issues for the town to discuss. But yes.
Okay. Thank you, Council President Shaw. Do you have any questions?
Ron's presentation raised one question for me. So Ron, you're saying that at the end of the 5-year period, if Pepco wanted to renew the agreement, but the town did not want to, we would not have a choice. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, there are 3 5-year option periods exercisable by Pepco. So Pepco decides whether they want to extend the agreement. And there's no provision allowing for termination by convenience for the town.
I just think it's hard to predict 20 years from now what things are going to be like. And I don't know whether there's any option to write that a little differently. Maybe Tammy can answer whether every agreement looks exactly like this or whether there are options.
Tammy, you heard the question, right?
Right. I can speak to both of those issues, but I'll start with Marnie's first. The shortest answer to your first question is we can work with the town to modify that agreement, especially if the town has concerns. For Pepco, what's optimal for us would be to have the facilities in the ground anywhere between 15 and 20 years. Because there's no investment being made by the town and Pepco is essentially paying for the construction and the installation of the facilities, what's optimal for us to see any long-term return on that investment would be to obviously have the facilities in the ground at least for anywhere between a 15 to 20-year period. Now, if the town has any overarching concerns, or if your attorney wants to recommend that it be worded in a different way, if the town is, really just interested in wanting to, retain some autonomy with having the facilities removed, I'm more than happy to take that back. And then with regard to Ron's point about being able to get something, the town considering sort of a revenue sharing agreement, I will add, we have gotten that question from other entities, from Montgomery County. The city of Rockville has also inquired where we've installed these facilities. And under this program, because it is a Maryland Public Service Commission pilot program, currently under the program, we're unable to do any revenue sharing at this point. Now, that's not to say that the commission wouldn't be open to something in the future once the pilot's done, but at this point, we can't enter into any revenue sharing agreement.
What about a free charging, free charging for the town? This is Ron Bolt again, Tammy.
Yeah. One option that we do have under this program is, because it's a public charging program and it's meant to be for, public vehicles and for the general public, and not really for fleet vehicles like what a municipality would own. One option that municipalities do have is, if you do have large scale fleets, Green Lots, and that's the company where that manages the payment system for the facility, there is a reduced rate for charging for fleet vehicles. So if the town of Somerset wanted to invest in, one or two fleet vehicles, we could explore the option of having those vehicles charged on these facilities at a reduced rate.
Okay, thank you. Council President Shaw, do you have any other question? Okay.
No more questions. Thank you.
Council Member Zoidhauser, do you have any questions? You're muted. You're muted.
My only question is that, Tammy, is that you mentioned that it's a 24/7 operation, and that's something I wonder if other council members feel that might be problematic. The charging station backs up on quite a few homes, and since we're in it for 20 years, if the folks around there start having a problem this year, next year, 10 years down the road, it doesn't look like we have a way out. And I just, I don't know, that gives me pause. I wonder if it could be like the parks, it closes at dark. Something more along those lines. But I guess I'm interested more in what if other council members might have share that same concern.
Okay, well, you'll have an opportunity to debate that when the motion's made. But did you have any other?
Yes, I guess my question for Tammy, in other public places, have other communities asked for that, to have the station close at dark?
Sure, I can speak to that. No. In Rockville, where we have facilities at the Thomas Farm Community Center, those facilities are 24 hours accessible. In Prince George's County, where we have facilities installed, the city of New Carrollton and in Mount Rainier, they're 24 hours accessible. And then also in Tacoma Park, where we have facilities installed, they're also accessible 24 hours. I will offer to council that in consideration of that concern, I think that was also a big driver as to why we went from 2 chargers down to the 1. The chargers don't make noise. The only real impact to the city and to those residents would just be during the construction phase. And then, of course, something to consider as people are charging their vehicles, there's not really many amenities where people are like exiting their cars or doing anything. So, we anticipate that any impact locally would be minimal, other than people seeing a car out there maybe more often than not. And I think overall too, just that location of the parking lot, lends itself to where, if people are using it, it's mostly going to be people in the town who know that that facility is there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Council Member Peel, do you have any questions?
I have a number of questions, and I have to say that I'm really, I thought that I was a little bit more in favor of this than I'm turning out to be. I'm not really hearing anything good for the town of Somerset in this. I mean, we're not trying to attract members of the general public to the town to come and, visit our restaurants or anything like that. I mean, we're not like the Thomas Farm Community Center where there's, already going to be security people there driving around, keeping an eye on the neighborhood. And what I'm hearing is, that there are going to basically be people bringing their cars, parking in the tennis court lots at any time of day, and then walking off the property or sitting in their cars until their cars are charged. I don't really know. I don't like the idea of either one. We don't have enough town security to have somebody sitting in that lot to make sure that things are safe for people. We have, children who are using the tennis courts with permission from their parents, and, potentially we could have somebody who's not part of the community sitting there in their car, charging their car for some period of time. I have a number of concerns, and frankly, this contract, I don't hear anything good for Somerset. I mean, I understand there are benefits for the environment, but I don't hear any benefits for the town. People who live in the town who have electric vehicles, I've been told by people who have them that they have the charging facilities at their house.
Okay, well,
I can understand the idea, and I like the idea in concept, but I don't like the idea for our neighborhood.
so did you,
liking it less than the first time I heard about it.
so,
So I guess I have a number of concerns. I don't know whether Tammy can address them or not.
well,
But
I think this would be your opportunity for Tammy to address them.
yeah, I mean, the other thing I'll just say, in addition to all that, is that you're talking about a 20-year agreement. I mean, if we decided 10 years from now that we didn't want to have tennis courts there anymore, but we wanted to tear out our tennis courts and, I don't know, build a community center of our own, we would not be able to do that.
You'll be able to debate that if a motion is made, but in the meantime, would you like Tammy to respond to your concerns?
I mean, I guess I'll start with the first concern for Tammy, which would just be, how does this work in practice? Is a person driving in off of Wisconsin Avenue saying, I'm going to park my car here in the town of Somerset lot, and then what? Go for a walk for a couple of hours or walk down to Friendship Heights? I mean, what is that person doing until their car is charged in your sort of scenario?
So I cannot speak to the individual activities of people that access the facilities, but let me just speak to what our general observations have been where we have installed these facilities, where these facilities are operational. As somebody who is a user of these facilities, I can offer some additional color around that. So the charging stations are either level 2 or DC fast charging. So you're looking at a scenario where people who are charging vehicles, depending upon how much energy their cars require, maybe they are using the charging space for an hour to 2 hours. Maybe they're only using the space for up to 30 minutes. Something that I would ask council to think about is, the act of owning an electric vehicle is a very deliberate act. And so, people who are seeking out those facilities are seeking them out deliberately. They're seeking them out to charge their vehicles so they can go to work, so they can run their errands. And in doing so, the general experience is I may park my vehicle and go play tennis. I may park my vehicle and conduct some transaction at City Hall. I may park my vehicle and watch a movie on my phone, read a book or a magazine. Because my vehicle is of a tremendous asset to me, the likelihood that I'm going to just plug it in and walk away and leave it unattended, very unlikely with electric vehicles. And generally, I think if you talk to your colleagues in cities like Rockville and Tacoma Park, where not only are charging facilities in the ground, remember, there are charging facilities all throughout Montgomery County. ChargePoint, Tesla, they offer public facilities in public shopping centers and also in other park and business park locations. The general experience is I'm sympathetic to your concern. Here's a facility that's accessible to the public, and people are going to be able to use it. And the concern is, what other access would they have? But at the same time, I think that electric vehicles, the people that are owning them, maintaining these vehicles, caring for them, that are responsible for keeping them charged so they can use them, it's not necessarily a group that lends itself to nefarious acts. I'll say there are any number of also electric vehicle charging advocates in the community, and I'd be more than happy to put you in touch with them. And just the demand is also, it is increasing, and there are people that don't always have the luxury of installing facilities in their home. For any aesthetic purposes or convenience purposes, there are advocates that find public charging facilities just much easier. And finding the locations for where these chargers are, again, it's very niche, very specialty. So even though it's a public charging facility, unlike a Royal Farms gas station that has public chargers or a shopping mall parking lot, what communities are able to get through our program is a little bit more privacy. So that also lends itself to a lot more local access. So if you're looking at people that are using it, more than likely it's going to be people in the community, going to be people in the surrounding area. I don't know if that, again, I'm sympathetic to your concerns, and I hope I've been able to address some of that. And, if the council has any other general concerns, we can certainly put you in touch with other advocates in this space.
Well, I appreciate that, Tammy, and I understand it all. And I think that does make sense when you're talking about a community like Rockville, where they have movie theaters and restaurants and things for people to do. That's not the case in Somerset. I mean, I think you know kind of the scale of what we're talking about. You can't invite general members of the general public to play tennis on our tennis courts while they're waiting for their car to charge. So, that's not really something where I can see somebody spending 2 hours at the town hall and saying, oh, thank goodness there's an electric charging thing here for me, when most of the people who are coming into the town hall are people who have houses in the town. Anyway, I guess, I don't know whether other council members are going to agree with my concerns, but given the constraints in this agreement and the, and the fact that the town's hands are so tied with this, and the fact that this charger would be available 24 hours a day, I just think it raises more problems to me than benefits, although I do understand the benefits to the environment generally, but I don't think that they outweigh the inconveniences to the town of Somerset. So that's where I'm down on that.
Thank you. So you have no further questions?
I've raised all of my concerns.
Okay, thank you. Council Member Circa, do you have any questions?
So I was curious if Tammy has any information on usage of such sites in small jurisdictions like the town of Somerset, and perhaps any information on crime or other issues related to them. And you might not, Tammy, but if you did, that'd be interesting.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
I'm just curious if you have any sense of typical usage for these sites. I mean, in my mind,
sure.
the scenario is, sure, residents who have electric vehicles in Somerset probably have their own charging station. For residents who do not have electric vehicles, which is most of the residents in the town, but they have friends who might have an electric vehicle, their friends might come over, friends or family, and might want to charge up. So it can be very convenient for residents to enable their friends and family to charge up. I'm just curious, do you have any insights into who uses these types of sites? How often they're used? Is it like once a week? Are cars backed up waiting to use them?
Sure. Before the pandemic, we had very little, if no uptake or interest in usage. And then, of course, during the pandemic, we saw usage, if not stay at a steady zero, where we did have some uptake. Originally, we saw that fall off. It's really only been since December, January timeframe where we've seen the usage start to pick up, particularly in areas in Tacoma Park and at the Thomas Crown Center, where they're starting to re-engage more residents and activities there. So we have seen some uptake. It's been moderate. We don't necessarily have statistics or metrics around the types of people who are using these facilities, but we expect that as we continue to construct facilities in public places, it will continue to attract usage. I can speak to another really good comparable scenario too. The town of City of Greenbelt, Maryland. They also have a public charging facility, and it's actually a free facility that sits right in front of their town hall. I think, and again, I'm more than happy to put you in touch with other council members and other people who are in the space. And I think, if you were to speak to the City of Greenbelt, their experience has been mostly people sit in their car and they charge their vehicle and they leave. One question that we get from a lot of municipalities that have concerns about safety is, they have concerns with parking and, how parking's managed. And, just real briefly, I can, speak to the fact that where we have installed these facilities, parking access has yet to be an issue, and none of the municipalities have reported any difficulties with people staying too long in the lots or people parking and taking up spaces. So, a lot of those concerns, we have not seen that with our facilities.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Barr, do you have any questions?
Well, I've got a few comments. I am an electric car owner myself, and I can say that we've charged our car overnight at hotels, and the need for them to be available overnight is real, especially when people are traveling long distances. You run your charge down low, then having overnight charging allows you to go up to full capacity on a level 2 charger. The other point really is to reinforce what Tammy was saying, that we really expect very low usage of the charging station in the first couple of years because there aren't that many electric cars on the road. But the number of electric cars on the road is going to grow exponentially over the next 10 years. That's very clear because of the number of models that are coming on the market now. And so we expect, therefore, the usage of the charger to increase over 10 years. And yes, I can see why Pepco wants a longer term agreement for that, because they will make more money in the later years and will be running a loss in the early years on it. And that does make sense. Finally, the first kind of usage of it, I imagine tennis players will be among, it is their partners who will be using it. They'll be coming from wherever they live, maybe in an apartment, maybe in an old townhouse, somewhere where they can't have a charger. They're playing tennis, and a tennis game is just the right time to get an hour's charge in for your car, which is great. So, Franny, yes, there is a facility right there that, in fact, people will use called the tennis courts while they're charging their car. But yes, that's what Steve is saying is correct too, that people visiting other residents, maybe family members coming some distances, will be very happy to see the chargers there if they're driving an electric car. So just some thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Peel, did you have another question in this round?
I don't know if I have a question or if this is an opportunity for us to talk among the council, or.
Well, we're now going to have the public hearing, and then if there's a motion, you'll have an opportunity to debate the motion. Thank you. Mr. Town Manager, has any resident or guest indicated they would wish to speak on this agenda item?
Yes, I received a couple. Tammy, maybe you can speak to this. First question was, What and how, what methods and how does Pepco publicize the locations of their public charging facilities? I guess that was the first question. I don't know if you can address that.
Sure. At this time, we don't necessarily, if you were to make an inquiry to Pepco, we would tell you the locations that we have that are installed and available. I think maybe what the comment, question, or concern is, because we've gotten this elsewhere too, and that is, if I have an electric vehicle, what resources are available for me to know where Pepco's public charging facilities are located. And certainly down the road, when we have sort of a critical mass of infrastructure in the ground, we would, working with our municipal partners, look at options for making that available on a website, or making that somehow more publicly available, or publicizing it. But right now, other than just a press release, if the town wanted to have a ribbon cutting or some other kind of function, much beyond that, there's really no significant promotion for these facilities. I will offer, we've heard from any number of stakeholders in this space where, I think there may be some EV club or electric vehicle interest groups, and they maintain a list of where facilities are available, but it's our facilities, it's Tesla's facilities, it's ChargePoint's facilities. So, that information is available, and certainly, it's in a public space, but in terms of marketing or promotion, we don't really have that right now.
Okay. And then another question, two kind of related questions that maybe you can quickly speak to. The first is what kinds of vehicles are able to be charged at the station that Pepco has proposed to install? And then similarly, how quickly does the charger charge vehicles? How long does it take to fully charge a vehicle?
Sure. So the facilities that Pepco installs are two types. One's a level 2, and the second one's a DC fast charger. DC fast charger is a little bit more rapid than the level 2. The amount of time depends on type of vehicle and, of course, how low your battery is that you're charging, much like, a regular car. Our general experience is, there are options. There are people that will probably need to park their car, for in excess of 2 hours. But our general experience with our facilities is people are charging for up to 1 to 2 hours with the level 2s, and then the DC fast chargers, 30 minutes to an hour.
Okay. And it's is it only electric vehicles, or are hybrid vehicles able to be charged there as well?
If you have a hybrid vehicle that can use a level 2 or a DC fast, yes.
Okay. So I had one more question that was submitted to me, and then and then I think 2 residents had said that they had questions. So the last question was related to maintenance of the chargers. I know that there's a clause in the license agreement that says that Pepco is responsible for maintaining and keeping the charging stations in good working order. But I was wondering to what extent Pepco plans on improvements over the life cycle of the charging stations as technology improves.
Sure. The agreement does have a clause that stipulates that we're responsible for maintaining the facilities, maintaining them operationally, maintaining their integrity. Right now, we have about a 98% success rate. We did have one issue at the New Carrollton parking charger facility that we had to take care of in December. But one thing that I will point out for the public, staff, council is, that level of attention to detail in that portion of the agreement. You don't necessarily get that with charge points and your Tesla operators. So we feel like that's an added benefit to the town as well, our ability to maintain these facilities. Right now, we don't foresee any scenario where, we're ripping them out of the ground and replacing them with any newer technology. What we are constructing and installing is already, fairly cutting edge, and we believe it will continue to be sustainable for the life cycle of the time that we have the facilities in the ground. Obviously, I'll take this opportunity to point out that, in the event that the facility needs any larger, more critical repair, again, we're responsible for that. So, that's an added benefit that, the town doesn't incur any expenses with that work.
Okay, and
I don't know if that successfully addresses the question, but let me know.
thank you. All right, so 3 folks that sort of raised their hand to me and wish to make a comment. The first of which was Lucy Freeman.
Sure. Okay, I'd just like to speak up in support of this charging station. In Somerset, we're part of Chevy Chase in Montgomery County in the state, and we get pollution from other people, from cars from all over the place. And this is something that we can do to help the environment. And, if everyone had an electric car, which I don't have, at least I have a hybrid, but if everyone had an electric car, then our environment would be much better. And this is something that the town of Somerset can do to help the pollution problem, the environment in our whole area. And that's all I have to say. Oh, Lucy Freeman Fallstone.
Thank you, Lucy. Who's next, Mr. Town Manager?
Debbie Heller had raised her hand. Debbie, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. I want to begin by saying I really agree with most of what Franny said. I haven't had an electric car now for almost, we're in our second electric car into our 8th year of ownership. And I will tell you that we, especially in the early years, had to roam around looking for chargers in cities when we were visiting. And we would go into communities, plug in our car and walk off for 5, 6, 7 hours because the charges were slow. And my guess is that these charges will not be fast enough. And so we could charge our car because we're on vacation. Now things are better for us, easier to charge. But I think this is going to open us up to bring transients into our community. And I worry about the kids on the tennis courts. And I don't see how this is going to benefit us. I think most of us in the town that have electric cars will have chargers in our driveway, or we'll be going to our neighbors to use theirs. And I have done that for other neighbors. I've given them my charger when they first gotten cars. I'm always happy to help. I worry about this long-term contract. I don't think it's a good deal for us because if things go awry and we don't like what's gone on, and we don't feel it's protecting us or our children, and I'm most really concerned about our children we feel safe in our little cubicle here. I just think this is not a good deal. And I also wonder, can people from outside the community use our tennis courts? So the argument that they can come in, play tennis and plug in, the outside people, it doesn't make sense. Now listen, I'm all for the environment. They tease me at home saying that I'm saving the environment 1 tea bag at a time, okay? So I'm right there with the environment, and I want to do anything I can to be helpful. But I really don't think this is a good deal for us. That's my.
Can I clarify a comment I made? Causing confusion.
Okay, go ahead, Councilor Barr.
Right. What I made when the tennis courts were there, of course, one player in the tennis court is a town resident, but the partner very frequently comes from out of town and brings their car, and they are the person who would be charging their car at the tennis courts, but still be legitimately playing in the courts because a resident is one of the tennis players on the court.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Town Manager, did you say there was a third person?
Yes, this was the last comment, Ann Bolton.
Hi, everybody. Ann Bolton, Cumberland Avenue. I also want to support some of the concerns that Franny raised. I would just point out that Friendship Heights has a number of charging stations in public parking lots near retail areas, which makes much more sense to draw in people who might be visiting Somerset and who want to leave their cars somewhere and walk around. It's walking distance to our town. They could leave their car there, charge it, and walk to visit their friends in Somerset. I think there are, as has been pointed out by several people, if you're a resident in Somerset with an electric vehicle, you most likely have your own personal charging station. So to obligate the town for 20 years seems to me to be not the smartest thing to do, particularly because it doesn't sound like there's a guarantee that Pepco is required to upgrade the technology if technology changes, which is really critical because 20 years is, a lifetime in the space of technology. So those are just my comments, and I appreciate, Franny, you raising those concerns. I fully support trying to encourage more use of electric vehicles, but I think we have to prove that the benefit really accrues to town residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Town Manager, is that the last person that wishes to speak?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Council, are you prepared to make a motion?
I move that we accept Pepco's offer to install a single electric charging station on the tennis courts for 2 ports.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, thank you. Now it's the opportunity for discussion. Council President Shaw. And please unmute. Marnie, you need to unmute. Thank you.
I support the idea of the charger, but I raised some concerns about the 20-year contract in my very first comments. And I believe Tammy said that she could go back and talk with Pepco about whether we could do some revision of that section to make it a little bit more balanced, so that if at the end of 5 years, Somerset had concerns, there would be some ways to either terminate or adjust the contract. So I would want to know that that kind of adjustment could be written into this agreement before I could support it. And I doubt that Tammy can give us any assurance tonight without going back to Pepco and talking with their legal staff or whoever all is making the policy on this.
Well,
so I'm not sure we can reach agreement tonight.
Okay, I think that's a very good point. Let's ask Tammy, what is the duration of the offer?
Sure, I can address this. Something that I would ask the town to think about, certainly if what Pepco's proposed isn't suitable, and in light of the concerns that you've raised, I would look to your legal to see if there was any language they would want to recommend first. One option that I'm just thinking at the top of my head, we can certainly look at a 15-year agreement. We can certainly look at an option for language where if after 10 years, let's just say the situation is such where it's just becomes untenable, and, we can certainly look at language that would, perhaps give Somerset, in light of the concerns that have been raised this evening, I think Pepco would be open to working with your legal on language that would offer you an out at an earlier time.
Okay, thank you. So in light of that, Mr. Town Attorney, there is a motion on the floor, and I am not sure that there is majority support for the motion. So, and we do have the opportunity to consider the council has opportunity to consider another offer in the near future. So this is really to you and to the council, perhaps it would be best, rather than debate it all night, is to turn down this motion and then invite Tammy to negotiate with Pepco to negotiate with the town manager and the town attorney and bring something back that addresses all these concerns that have been raised.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, that's certainly an option. And when you said council, was it a SEL or CIL?
See, well, I mean, this is the council's decision, but given that the council president has great influence on these members, and I don't really see that this is going to pass. And so then rather than, I mean, I think all of the issues have been presented enough to go back for you.
I think Robin and Steve have made a motion and seconded. I think we need to go through the process.
Well, I know, but I'm suggesting rather than, in the interest of time, rather than debate it tonight when it doesn't have majority support, that.
Well, I guess I would like an opportunity to speak about it again if we're going to go through.
Please do. You do have that opportunity.
If Marty's finished, it's Barbara's turn.
Could I perhaps, as the person who proposed the motion, what I'm going to do is withdraw the motion at this time. Thank you.
Well, you can't withdraw a motion that's on the table. Isn't that correct, Mr. Town Attorney?
I would need to look that up in Robert's rules, Mr. Mayor.
I think, well, you know, I'm presiding here, and I think when it's on the table, it has to be voted up or down. But it doesn't have to reflect a lack of, support. I would just suggest, in the interest of time, and then since I don't think we have a majority that are going to support this.
Or we could bring it to a vote, and if a council member is not comfortable, that person could abstain, and the council members that feel that they can vote this evening.
For it, right? Or they. So,
Which I would be fine with that, since Robin did.
So the motion can be withdrawn by unanimous consent, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, well, by unanimous consent.
Well, I guess I feel like we're dancing around the procedural issue a little bit here tonight. I mean, I understand that you're basically saying, like, let's defer this and see if Pepco can come back with a different offer, but I think that's kind of avoiding the issue of discussing whether or not there's any real benefit to our residents in looking into this agreement at all. And you're asking the council to approve engaging Ron on this matter and so on. I think it's still worth talking about.
I was only offering the fact that the council president was supporting the idea of, and I'll let her speak to it, but I don't, you have a lot of options, but one of them has been presented by the council president. So, but please keep debating, because that's the purpose of the discussion. But there's a motion on the table.
I did ask you earlier whether I would have another opportunity to talk about this.
You do, right? Yes, right now you have an opportunity to speak against or for the motion.
Well, I would like to defer to Barbara before I'm sure that she's finished speaking.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard from, I was actually very happy to hear from Debbie Heller, soon to be serving on the council, and from Ann Bolton. And I think they both brought up some very good thoughts and concerns on the charging station. Franny, I share your concerns, and I have to say, everything else aside, just entering into an agreement for 20 years or even 10 years just seems like a very, very long time, because if it doesn't work out after the first year, what are we going to do? So I agree. Charging stations are great. I'm all for electric cars, but I'd like to vote on it tonight and not have Ron spend any time on it, because as he spends time, the town is spending money. So something that is supposedly free is no longer free. And I just think we can put this to bed tonight, myself.
Okay, well, that's the point of Councilor Peel. Did you wish to speak?
Yes, I mean, I guess I'd like to also follow up some of my earlier comments with the point that Pepco selected this location, with 2 parking spaces basically directly in front of our tennis courts, which really means that for the next 20 years, whether we have maintenance to do on the tennis courts, whether we have some drainage problems to do on the courts. You know, they're saying we can't make any improvements to the area, and that's the location they selected. And it really blocks our use of that land and that property that's in the town, and prevents us from doing anything with the parking lot or with the tennis courts or with the, you know, approach to the town hall and so on. And I think people really need to think about that. What are the benefits? The benefits I've heard proposed tonight have to do with residents who have guests visiting them from out of town, or residents who might have friends who are coming over to play tennis. And I haven't heard any benefits actually listed for people who live in the town. And people who would go there to charge their cars would be paying Pepco to charge their cars. And if they don't have an electric charging station at their house, I'm not sure that they would pick the town hall parking lot to charge their car when they could just drive over to Safeway and do their shopping. So again, you know, we're not trying to attract people to come to the town of Somerset for any particular reason. We're welcome to our friends and guests, but we're not trying to get people to come to go to restaurants and go shopping in our neighborhood or something. So I think that the comparisons to other municipalities are not apt and they're not on point. And so I guess I just wanted to follow up with that. So I'm not in favor of pursuing this at this time, given the constraints of the agreement that Pepco has proposed, or even the constraints that we would probably have to go into in order to make it worth their while. That's all I wanted to say for tonight.
Okay, is there further discussion on the motion?
Well, maybe I could respond to Franny's comments. I'm willing to accept an amendment to the motion, first of all, so as we can resolve the issue over timing. I mean, 20 years is a long time, and we can certainly put a term in the motion that says that we will accept the offer contingent upon Pepco providing alternatives that allows Somerset to terminate the agreement at 5 years.
So are you offering an amendment to the motion?
But Tammy hasn't agreed to that.
I said conditional upon Pepco.
Right, but we don't have any.
Secondly, Franny, it is a benefit to town residents if your friends are able to charge their station in town, or if to residents if your partner in tennis can charge their car while there. It's convenience to you just as it is to your partner. So it is a benefit. But the point is, beyond that, it is a broader benefit to the community that Somerset is offering. We just voted to have bees in. You know, I don't know if bees directly benefit any town resident, but it is a broader benefit to the community that we're supporting bees. So the idea that we selfishly say it's only ourselves that should benefit from this, I see as not really the Somerset principle. We should be more open-hearted in Somerset about this. And electric vehicle owners are not transients, I hasten to add, not at the price of electric vehicles at the moment. Okay.
All right, is there further discussion on the motion?
So can Robin and I, this is Steve, can Robin and I just amend the motion with that caveat?
I need a second for the amendment.
You can.
I second it.
Yes, you can make it. So Councilor Barr, can you restate your amendment?
Yeah, the amendment is that provided to accept the charge, or provided Pepco can rework their agreement to allow Somerset an opt-out at 5 years based on cause.
Okay, so is that what you're seconding, Councilor Circo?
Yes, I think that's great.
So now we have discussion on the amendment. Does anyone wish to discuss the amendment? Hearing none.
Tammy,
Councilman Shaw, go ahead.
Tammy, I'm wondering whether you think you could be successful in working with Pepco on that?
So as I'm taking notes of the discussion, I can be successful in the sense that I can engage legal, because the way I would like to couch it internally is in light of the location and the issues that have been raised. I certainly think that there is room here for Pepco to consider offering the town of Somerset an earlier opt-out with this facility. Now, what I can't commit to is, you know, the timeline for what that opt-out would be. Would it be after a year? Would it be after 5 years? I think what I'm hearing is the town would like something that is more open. So if a year goes by and it's just, you know, not working out, you know, looking at language for an opt-out in that earlier time frame is certainly, I can take that back. And, you know, we're very interested in installing these facilities. We're very interested in making these chargers publicly available. Something else that I would also ask the town to consider is, I know the town is also thinking about bringing on their own electric vehicle charging facilities. And I know that with that will, you know, so whether we're debating Pepco's public charging station today, or we're debating the location of another charging station for the town's facilities later, you know, this represents an opportunity for us to get ahead of, because again, if you're having this discussion later, then it's a discussion of how much the town is going to have to pay to install facilities to charge their fleet vehicles versus now where we are offering to install these at no cost to the town. So that's something else I would ask council to consider in terms of benefit. But to your question, Marnie, I feel like council has outlined, you know, very significant and important concerns for us to consider. You know, unlike the charging stations that we have installed in other locations, which are more public, you know, we're sympathetic to this location, and I would like to be able to at least have the opportunity to advocate for the town in that space.
Thank you.
Okay, is there further discussion on the amendment?
Yes.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Talk about this amendment. I mean, I think Robin has proposed language that I think I could try to parse out a little bit, or Ron could try to parse out a little bit, but the sort of concept of terminating a contract for cause is a very specific term with a specific meaning, and it may not give us the flexibility that it implies. And I think that it would be important for us to not go forward with any discussion of an amendment that sort of conditioned approval on a contract with a termination clause that allowed for cause termination on the part of the town without understanding exactly what that meant. And again, I don't think that that would just be the kind of thing where we would be able to say, you know, look, on balance, the people in town are not very happy with this, or the neighbors are unhappy, or we regret doing this for one reason or another. I don't think that that would give us the out that we might be looking for. And to the extent that we aren't really in a position tonight to think through all of the reasons why we might want to terminate this contract, I think it would be sort of premature to condition approval on that kind of language without really having an opportunity to hear from Ron about it, or for having Ron to, you know, negotiate something. Again, I'm not sure if I'm in favor of it, but I just don't think that you can just sort of change the language tonight to say, you know, that termination for cause would give us the flexibility that we want.
Well,
I don't know if Ron
did you want to ask Ron?
Well, I mean, I guess I'm thinking that, you know, what I'm hearing from Tammy is, you know, I think what I'm hearing from Tammy is that she's not sure that she's going to be able to get us, you know, in fact, a 1 year sort of back out of it, change our mind thing. I mean, after all, you know, they've said that they're only taking away the equipment that's above the surface. And so we're still going to be left with some kind of change to our property that we would still need to manage. I just think there's a lot of long-term considerations here, and you know, we're sort of being pulled on the timetable of whether or not this is going to be free to the town because Pepco's offering it right now. And to me, there are more concerns raised tonight by this agreement and by the constraints involved in it than I've heard or than I've had all along. And yet we're still being sort of reminded, like, hey, it's free now, you know, we're offering it for free now. I mean, if this is something that the town wants to do, we put a lot more time and effort into investing in some other things, like looking at our lights and so on. And yes, I mean, I do think that we do sometimes do things just for the sake of the environment, whether it's the bees or the leaf blowers or the pesticides, and I'm in favor of those things. And I certainly wouldn't want anybody to think that I'm feeling selfish about the town, but here I am tonight as a council member, and I'm acting on my belief that this does not offer benefits for the resident of this town. And in fact, it is something that would really tie our hands, and I don't see the benefit. I don't see the benefit. So.
Okay, thank you. Is there further discussion on the amendment?
Can you restate the amendment? I want to make sure I understand it.
Could Council Member Barr please, or maybe Matt could restate the amendment?
Sure. So as I understood it, and correct me if I'm wrong, council member, but it was to enter into an agreement with Pepco contingent on working out an out clause at 5-year intervals at the town's discretion.
For cause, yeah. And by for cause, I meant that as we have a reason, such as we're redeveloping the space, which is what Franny said, or alternatively, nobody's using it. There is really shouldn't continue to use it. That's what I mean by reason.
So is that, Council President Shaw, do you understand the amendment now?
I didn't understand Robin to say that it didn't start till the opt-out didn't start till 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, I can make it more flexible if that suits you, Marnie. I mean, it's certainly we can have opt out every year based upon cause again, if that is looking for.
Well, but right now there's an amendment on the floor, and if it fails, you can offer another one.
Right. Yeah.
So is there further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor? So I think it's all those opposed. So I think it was that failed 2-3.
Right. So I'll offer.
So did you wish to offer another amendment, Council?
Yeah, another amendment which is contingent upon an opt-out clause that Somerset may use annually based upon cause.
Okay, is there a second on that? Council President Shaw seconded. Okay, now is there discussion on this amendment?
I mean, I guess my question is that, I mean, this is sort of our wish list. Is that the idea that if we can get all these things, then we'll move forward with it? Or are we, also agreeing that if the Pepco says we can't do that, then we're done? I mean, I don't get any sense from Tammy that this is going to be the kind of flexibility that she has to offer. I mean,
I agree. Tammy, can you clarify that a little bit, please?
Well, I mean, I think I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. Because we believe very much in the program, and I personally believe in the benefit of the program, I would sincerely like the opportunity to at least work with legal, even if it's just a one-time pass, to try and bring to the town an agreement that would be more suitable in light of the concerns that have been discussed this evening. However, if it is the position of council that they fundamentally don't want to proceed, or that they fundamentally don't want to move forward with it, I'm not convinced any revision or anything Pepco would offer could ameliorate that. So, I mean, I understand, the council's looking at me to offer some kind of clarity into the rune stones, but at the end of the day, I mean, if there's still these, very, very, fundamental concerns, I'm not convinced that a shorter duration alleviates that.
So before you vote on this amendment, let me remind the council that if you happen to turn down this item tonight, what the process would be after that is if another offer was placed on the table by Pepco, that would then go to a work session. And then if 3 council members wanted to put that on the agenda in the future, that's what would happen. So if you decide to turn down this proposal tonight, there's still an opportunity in the future at, up to you to, if something else gets created that is agreeable to at least 3 of you, it will be put on a future agenda. So, but in any case, is there further discussion on this amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? So that carries 3-2. And now what is on the floor is the original motion as amended. Does everybody understand what that is? Okay, so is there discussion on the motion is there further discussion on the motion as amended?
I have a question.
Sure.
So I just want to make sure, I guess maybe just to air out just what we're talking about. We're talking about authorizing Ron to negotiate with Pepco on a new contract that would then come back before the council. Or is that what we're talking about tonight? Or
Formally, it's the town to negotiate with Pepco. Yeah, it might be through Ron, but yes.
I understand into the contract tonight. We're talking about authorizing the town to negotiate a contract with new terms, not accepting the contract that was offered tonight. I mean, there are other parts of that contract that I think are objectionable. And we've talked about the term and we've talked about the termination rights. I think we haven't spent as much time talking about some other parts of it, whether it was the upgrades or the access to the land and whether or not we are able to make any improvements or repairs to our tennis courts and things like that. So I think there's more to it that needs to be talked about. And if the process goes forward from here, the people want to kind of find out what Pepco can do about offering up a new contract or negotiating one, then that's fine. But I think there's still some other things to talk about. So I just wanted to make sure I understood what we were about to vote on.
So perhaps the town manager should clarify what the motion on the table is as amended.
Well, I actually had a similar question to Franny, and I just wanted to clarify if the motion was to have myself and Ron engage with Pepco to work out a contract within the parameters of what has been voted on, or if it was to work out a contract to come back to the council.
Well, I thought that everybody was clear on what the amendment was. That you 3-2 voted on. Maybe the town attorney can clarify what the amendment.
My understanding of it was that the 3-2 vote that approved the amendment basically said,
well, what was written down?
This contract with a few changes would be okay. And I guess I'm asking, is that what we're voting on now? Are we voting on entering into a contract subject to certain conditions?
I think that's the question. What was actually the motion? That's why it's so important that when these amendments are made, any motion is made, it has to be totally specific. And I'm not sure that everybody understood it doesn't appear that everybody understood what.
All right. The amendment, as I think it was passed as understood by those voting on it, is that the town, and it was the town, may opt out annually based on cause. And by town, I mean certainly our town manager, presumably working with Ron, can negotiate that or attempt to negotiate that with Pepco. That was it. And it particularly is if that contract comes out as described, then there's no need to take it back to council. If you can't negotiate it, then again, we'd have to go through a work session and try again.
So was that the understanding of the 3 people that voted for that amendment? Council member Shaw, was that your, Council President Shaw, was that your understanding of the amendment that you voted on? You're muted, by the way.
I'm sorry. Yes, I thought that that amendment was to, would mean that we were going forward, if that could be negotiated, that we were going forward with the entire proposal.
So, and that's your understanding, Councilmember Circo, who also voted for the amendment.
Yes.
Okay, so to answer your question, Councilmember Peel, and perhaps the town attorney can verify that. So I believe that that is the motion on the table, the original motion to accept the offer as amended by that, the amendment that Councilmember Barr just stated. So that's what's on the floor right now.
So what's on the floor right now is authorizing Matt to enter into a contract, assuming that the conditions that Robin has raised are met.
Yes.
So we're not going to talk about the rest of the contract? The rest of it was sufficient.
Well, you can talk about anything because it's the.
No, I mean, I just wanted to make sure I understood. So with any other changes to the contract would need to be discussed tonight in that case.
Yes, because it's the.
Okay,
It's the
well, that's
original
why I'm
offer.
asking. That's why I'm asking.
Isn't that correct, Mr. Town Attorney?
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Mayor. It was my understanding that the motion was to approve the proposal with the condition that the termination clause be renegotiated to allow termination after 1 year for cause, and we would then define cause as we were improving the area and needed the facility removed, or no one was using it.
Okay, thank you. So Councilmember Peel, you're free to discuss any aspect of the motion which includes that offer.
I've already said a lot, as everybody has heard me say. I think there are a lot of concerns that I raised tonight that, I don't think they're covered by this contract as it written, even with the proposed conditions. And I still think there are concerns about public safety and that have not been discussed tonight, and that, regardless of how many years the contract takes place for, are still not being discussed, being in fact dismissed as not important. So that's the way it goes. But that I think I just wanted to make sure that everybody was clear that the action going forward from this point in time was not just whether or not to send Matt and Ron back to talk to Pepco, but basically to say, yes, this contract, other than the term and the terminability, essentially are okay. And it sounds
Yes,
like
well,
that's
thank you.
understood, so that's fine.
Thank you for clarifying that because it's important. So is there further discussion on the motion as amended? Go ahead, Council President.
Well, I'm just wondering if there are other significant contract concerns, whether we should go ahead with this before we address them. I mean, I'm not an attorney, obviously, Franny, you are seeing some things that I wasn't looking for in the contract. Attorneys are much more focused on every single word. I don't know whether we should be looking at some other things as well.
Franny, you mentioned other concerns. Would you care to describe some of them?
I thought I had done so at length, and I went through them with Tammy, and I've been through them a few times now. I mean, frankly, we're talking about putting constraints on the town's property for benefits that are, my understanding, mainly accruing to people who do not live in the town of Somerset, and creating possible public safety risks for the people who use the tennis courts and the children who use the tennis courts. And we do not have a full-time police force. We're not the Thomas Farm area with its own security system. And we're talking about people coming and leaving their cars for a couple of hours, either sitting in their cars or leaving them there and walking off. And we still haven't talked about whether or not we have the ability to tow a car out of there if somebody leaves their car for some period of time. You know, I think, like I said, to me, on balance, what it comes out to is we are making a decision in favor of an environmental concern that that ignores the downsides to town residents.
Thank
And
you.
that's where I am on it.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, is there further discussion on the motion as amended? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? So the motion carries 3-2. Thank you very much for that excellent process that you went through. The next item, public hearing motion, it's item number 5. It's the amendment to the budget regarding the adding to the existing contract for the extend the pool season. So with that, I will turn this over again to the town manager.
Yes, unfortunately, I don't have the actual addendum in front of you yet from American Pool, but I've had several follow-up discussions following our previous discussions at budget meetings regarding this item. In phone conversations, American Pool's estimated about $7,300 per week that we open the pool early. The previous quote incorrectly indicated our start date was Memorial Day weekend, which I pointed out was incorrect. The Somerset pool is currently slated to open the weekend before Memorial Day through September. So with those numbers, it would be approximately $22,000 to open at the beginning of May, $14,600 to open 2 weeks early, $7,300 to open 1 week early, and American Pool is offering about a $4,000 reduction to that overall cost in exchange for hosting lifeguard training at the town pool. So my suggestion was, if it's something that we wanted to move ahead with, that the council could elect to move that the town manager can sign an addendum to the current contract up to a certain dollar amount based on that information when an official addendum is available.
So before I take questions from the council, could you comment, Mr. Town Attorney, on how that would work in case any councilor has a question?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. Yes, it would be a motion to authorize the manager to negotiate that addendum, and the council could set the parameters on that addendum, with a not to exceed amount. Now, if the money has not yet been appropriated, it would need to be appropriated. Matt, did you say that there
That's
was
another item on the.
Yeah, I have that on the agenda as if this happens, then the next step would be amendment to the budget to
The next item.
allocate that money.
and would the money be reappropriated from an existing category?
Yes.
Or-
Yeah.
Okay.
We
And so it's-
separated it because if for some reason this fails, the next item is not necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And
Okay.
reappropriations do require a supermajority vote.
And also the reason that we separated it out is because I think Lucy had started to ask a question about that at the public comment period, because there are additional costs that would need to be baked into the budget amendment related to utility costs.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Madam President, Madam Council President, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. And so the sort of rebate for the lifeguard training, is that a prorated over the weeks? Or if we only did like 1 week, would we still have a $4,000 reduction? I'm presuming the numbers that you quoted on the weekly basis did not include the reduction for the lifeguards?
Correct.
And is it prorated over the 3 weeks? And when would they be training lifeguards?
The lifeguard training is 3 trainings. So it's more of an all or nothing proposal in that sense. And it's typically the week before the pool opens.
So 3 training sessions, but they could all be in the same week.
Exactly.
Okay, that's my only question.
Thank you. Council Member Zoighauser, do you have any questions?
You're muted, Barbara.
You're muted.
I had the same question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Council Member Peel.
No questions.
Thank you. Council Member Circo.
Yes, I'm trying to understand this with the town's finances. We've had a lot of discussions about the budget. We've had special work sessions talking about the budget. By my calculations, the fiscal year 21 finances, we have roughly a 20% reduction in income for this town, which speaks to me that we need to tighten our belts a bit. And my takeaway from those budget sessions attended by everyone here was that we don't really know what the future is going to foretell for the town, whether we're going to jump back up in revenue or not. So I was surprised to see this on the agenda, and I don't understand the financing to pay for this, what the trade-offs are. Is this mean we're not going to be able to cover street repairs? What's happening here?
Well, is your question is to the town manager, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a question or a rhetorical question. I think everything you said is correct in terms of the reduction of income to the town primarily through income taxes. It's actually at this point about a 47% reduction in our income taxes year over year, and currently about 8% lower on property taxes. So this money would come from our budget contingency that currently shows us only spending $3,000, of which we've already spent in the budget when you look at our 5-year budget. So it would add, it would be an additional incurred cost to the town.
Right. Thank you, Matt. And I guess this next question is for Marnie, and I guess my fellow council members. This is sort of a process question. You know, we've gone through a number of different initiatives and opportunities over the last couple of years since I've been on the board, and it was my takeaway that the process we should follow for anything that was significant, and this is certainly significant, is that we should have a town journal article, make sure that the town is informed of what's happening, give residents an opportunity to weigh in on the debate. And as one of the council members said, you know, we should never feel pressure to do something just because of the timeline. We should do what's right. I am very uncomfortable with how this is being sort of pushed through right now.
Okay, so Councilmember Circo, this now is your opportunity to ask questions of the town manager about the proposal.
Oh, sorry, that was more for Marnie.
If a motion is put forward after we go through the questioning and hearing from the public, then you will have an opportunity to debate.
Thank you. I'm done then.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Barr, do you have any questions?
Well, ultimately, it's really off the pool committee, which is what are their reasons for opening the pool early? I've heard it expressed to me that it is to benefit the school kids, the kids who've lost so much social interaction during the pandemic because of being isolated at home, and this is going to give them a chance to actually build as a team and be sociable out of a school context, and I get that. I haven't heard anything about if adults are also using the pool during their school hours, why should they see this extra benefit that the town is going to pay for? So I'd like.
So you have a question of the pool committee, correct?
Right.
I think that I aired in the beginning that after, since this was a recommendation of the pool committee, after the town manager made his presentation, I should have asked the pool committee chair to, who I think is here, to address the recommendation, and then I will run through the council again to ask questions before we take public testimony. So, Mr. Pool Committee Chair, thank you for being here tonight. Could you please could you please briefly describe your the committee's recommendation, and then we will have questions, so you don't have to be very long because we're running greatly behind tonight. So thank you.
Absolutely. Matthew Zaft, Dorset Avenue, Chair of the Pool Committee. Very quickly, back in October and November, we discussed this at the Pool Committee meetings. It was unanimously voted to recommend to the council that we open May 1st. There was an article put in the Town Journal in both November and then again in January, when we also recommended additionally to stay open through the end of October. So there's actually been at least two, and I believe a third mention by Matt Trollinger in his report in the Town Journal about this. I can forward, I've got at least 17 emails from adults asking about, can we get the pool open? Can we have it, sooner? Can we get more time at the pool, especially given the fact that we lost 2 months last year? And that was part of actually where this was driven. So there is absolutely the benefit to the kids, but there's also an equal benefit to the adults. And I also, one other thing is, the way it was explained to me from a budgetary standpoint was there are two different issues. There's the opening early and staying open late. The opening early falls in the 2020 budget and does not, or should not, I guess, be impacted by any revenue shortfall from 2021 tax revenues, and that there would be no money being taken from, say, roads or anything like the council member suggested or wondered about. So there should be, that is from a 2020 budget. Now, once we get to the issue of potentially staying open past the contracted close date of September 30th, which is another recommendation from the pool committee, that would fall in the 2021 budget. And I do think that these two should be considered separate from each other. I would also say that given that we have formally brought this to the council now several months ago, it's certainly not being rushed in our opinion. If anything, we would have liked to have dealt with it months ago.
Okay, thank you. And I will now go back to Council President Shaw in case she has a question of the pool committee chair. Okay. Council Member Zeughauser.
Oh, just Matt, I was so happy to hear that you've received so many emails from people within the community in support of opening up the pool early. Thank you for mentioning that.
Thank you. Councilmember Peel, do you have any questions of the pool committee chair?
I do, and of Matt Zaff, but also Matt Trollinger. I've sort of lost the thread on the rebate for the lifeguard training, and I remember Ann talking about it during our budget sessions as being something that would offset the proposal. And I just wondered if you could refresh my memory on whether we expect any money coming in from lifeguard training and whether that would cut down the $7,000 per week. If one of you could,
Yes, so the lifeguard training works in a couple different ways. Number one, there's one effect of all Somerset residents who wish to receive the lifeguard training get to take it for free. So any town resident, young or old, who wants to get lifeguard certified is eligible to take the class completely for free. The other benefit is the 4,000 plus credit that Matt mentioned. That is in return for us letting them conduct these classes for non-Somerset residents. That 4,000 plus credit is a direct line item credit. To answer a previous question, I think that was brought up, it's not prorated per week. It is just a one time. If we let them do the 3 sessions, which the pool committee also is in favor of, that gives us that 4,000 plus credit. Certainly not 7, and not going to sugarcoat that there, but it is something. And it is very important to note that that would have no impact on residents' use of the pool because it would be completed prior to us opening.
Okay, and do you feel confident that that lifeguard training will take place if we permit it?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so
They're chomping at the bit.
it seems likely that we could get $4,000 in credit, which would help offset the expense proposed for the early opening.
Yes.
Okay. I think that's my only question for now, although I appreciated hearing that this, so the actual opening date was May 22nd and not Memorial Day. So we were already opening a week earlier than some other community pools.
Yes, that's right.
And so,
And for the record, it's traditional that we open the weekend before Memorial Day. That's what's always, as long as my tenure on the pool committee, that's always been the weekend of opening.
okay. I don't have any other questions right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Council Member Sturka, do you have any questions of the pool committee chair?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Council Member Barr.
No more questions of the pool committee chair, no.
Thank you very much. Mr. Town Manager, has any resident or guest indicated they wish to speak on this agenda item?
It looks like we have somebody raising their hand.
Oh, I see Debbie Heller. Pool committee member Debbie Heller.
Don't
Please
forget to unmute,
unmute,
Debbie.
unmute. Future council member, please unmute. Thank
With
you.
my pool committee hat on, 2 questions. Well, a question and a comment. The question is, Matt Zaft, I don't know if you know this, or Matt T, but when American Pools comes in and does the training, whose insurance covers this? Do they carry their own insurance for this training? Or do we, the town, is it part of our insurance if something goes wrong?
No, that's covered by American Pool.
Okay. All right. That was just, I thought, an important question. The other thing is, I would like to support this. The pool committee was very enthusiastic about opening up earlier and sees a great benefit to the town. So if we can afford it, I don't understand the economics yet, but if we can afford it, I think it's a great thing, a great benefit for the town. So that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you. Has anyone else?
Yes, 2 more questions at this time. First is Lucy Freeman.
So Lucy Freeman on Fallstone, I gather we're just talking about opening in May. We're not talking about October. Is that correct?
Yes, at this time, yes, we've separated out two separate things and are only considering opening early in May.
Okay, so my first question that I brought up earlier was, what were the costs last year when we extended the season into October for the gas, for heating the water, the Pepco, I guess, for power, and the telephone? I was just wondering what all the different costs were.
I think Matt can answer that, correct?
Yeah, we did a lot of back and forth to try to best approximate that, and I'll give a special shout out to Ann Bolton who helped me out with this. But
who's on our budget committee? Thank you.
Yes, that's right. But the short answer for you, Lucy, is it's approximately $1,400 per week for all utilities combined.
Okay, and that includes the telephone.
Well, the telephone we have an annual contract with, so the telephone is actually is not impacted by that. So it's electricity, water, sewer, and gas. And gas is the primary driver because it's on the cooler end of our pool season, so it requires extra gas to heat it up.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And my second question is, if there is this life-saving class, again, held at the pool, will the instructors wear masks? Will the people who are taking part of the class who are not in the water, will they have masks? I brought this up last year when they were going to have this training, because the lifeguards last year were very lax at enforcing masks and wearing masks. And I wonder about this training.
Matt, can you answer that, or is that something that we would have to ask?
So I can sort of address it. Number one, American Pools last year when they did the lifeguard training, which we had, there was an incident on the first day of the 3-day training in which some of the people were not wearing masks. One of our pool committee members actually brought it up, and we immediately addressed it with American Pools, who immediately, for lack of a better way to put it, scolded the people that were not wearing the masks. And the next 2 days, everyone was masked up the whole time and doing a great job in that regard, that was taking the class and running the class. In my conversations with American Pools, they said, absolutely, everyone will be required to wear a mask when not in the water. When you're in the water, it is actually, you are not allowed to wear a mask.
Yeah.
Okay.
Masks in the water present a risk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Town Attorney, would it be possible for the council to put in a motion to have that required in the contract?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Freeman's question. Okay. Thank you, Lucy. Did you get your question answered?
Yes.
Do you
Thank
have any other questions?
Nope, not I.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Town Manager, has anyone else indicated?
Yes, Ann Bolton.
Oh,
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
I,
go ahead.
thanks, Ann Bolton.
Remember, say your name. We forgot
Yep,
to say your name.
Ann Bolton, Cumberland Avenue. It was mentioned that, I think by Council Member Barr, that the primary beneficiaries would be kids who got a late start to summer. But as I recall, the data that Matt Trollinger shared, there was a pretty significant adult use of the pool in October when that time was extended. So I would anticipate that there would be quite a lot of lap swimming that goes on. And so Matt Trollinger, I don't know if you want to repeat those numbers. The other thing is that I think we have found a better way to maybe manage some of the gas costs this year with the idea of the solar covers. And I've sent a picture around to the folks on the budget committee about that. And then finally, I would just really want to advocate for those kids who didn't miss a late start to the swim season. And I think that I understand we will have budget constraints beginning in fiscal year 22, but I think we could sort of contemplate an earlier start so that they don't miss a start to the swim season. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Mr. Town Manager, has anyone else indicated?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Council, are you prepared to make a motion? Council President Shaw, are you prepared to make a motion?
I'm moving that
Marnie, did you see that Barbara Condos had raised her hands? I don't know if Matt saw that.
Yeah, I think Barbara Condos raised her hand.
I'm a little late coming in.
Okay, go ahead, council member.
Does anybody know what the Montgomery County regulations as to pools are anticipated to be, or have they been issued? That's my question.
The only thing I've seen so far, and Matt Zaft sort of reminded me that as we're getting closer, we need to have these conversations about safety protocols and regulations. But I did see that Montgomery County was lifting the restriction of 1 person per lap lane. So I assume that means that they have released some regulations. Sounds like maybe Ann might have more insight into that.
I would just say that I don't know what the broad county regulations are, but for swim team practice, Montgomery County has issued a waiver for up to 6 swimmers per lane for swim team practice. So, that obviously still has to run through all of the town, but that is what the county guidance is currently.
Thank you.
I have a question for Matt, for Matt Trollinger, if I might. Matt, just looking over your numbers. So just to be sure I understand this rebate. So to open it 2 weeks early, the number you have is 17,200, and then it would be less 4,000. Is that correct?
More or less, yes. Yeah, that's right.
So it'd be about $13,000 to open it 2 weeks early for kids that have been home, not able to go to school, locked in their houses, haven't been able to see their friends. The swim team will be starting up. The pool always has problems when it opens every single year. So this would allow several days for the pool to work out all the kinks so that maybe they would get in, if we open it up 2 weeks early, maybe they would get in an extra 10 days. Because since you've been here, hasn't the pool had problems every single year? What have you been here? The 2 summers or 1 summers? Just one?
I was going to say, I missed the opening by a few weeks 2 years ago. So I'm 1 for 1 on late openings. I hope to end that streak of 1 this year.
Yeah, I think it's doubtful because of the age of the pool and the age of much of the equipment. And I just really plea with the other council members. The kids have had such a hard time.
Okay, so let's can we wait until the motion's introduced before you?
Sure.
Do you have any other questions?
No, so it would be about 13,000 to open it 2 weeks early, correct, Matt?
Yeah, about 13,000 to open. 13,000 to open 2 weeks early. That's right.
Thank you.
Okay, so council member.
The only thing, I guess, the only caveat I would point out is that I think when a motion is made, that the council should clarify that they are approving both the early opening and the lifeguard training, because they are not necessarily contingent upon one another.
Okay, with that, Council President Shaw, I'm prepared to make a motion.
I have another question.
Well, can you ask it after the motion's made?
It's a question for Matt Zaft. I just wasn't sure if he could, or.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask about the inspection by the county people and how quickly that can happen, on the timetable. Is it realistic, I guess I'm asking, for the pool to be usable by people as early as May 8th?
Yes. So if you authorize it tonight, and as I said, 2 weeks early is wonderful. I'd personally like 3 weeks early, but I'll take whatever I can get in this regard. But no, American Pools, and I've had conversations with Phil Carter, they are 100% certain that if you approve it tonight, even if you approve May 1st, like we would want, that they will have it inspected, they will have it ready to open. And now, to the point of also Barbara's about the pool, every year we find something. And I feel like it's not just 1 for 1. I feel like, I don't know how many years now I've been on the committee, but it's whatever it is, it's whatever it is. We always get a credit for whatever days we aren't open. So if let's say we authorize May 8th, and in reality, we don't open till May 10th, we don't pay for those 2 days that we weren't open. And that was part of the thing, like last year when we didn't open until July, we got a significant credit, which helped offset the October. But so, if you authorize May 1st and we don't open it until May 5th, you're not paying for May 1st through 5th. I think it's important to note that as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Council President Shaw,
I have a question of Matt before I do the motion.
Okay.
So if it's $7,300 a week, if we did 2 weeks, it's $14,600. But if we get the credit for $4,000 for the lifeguard, would we say in the motion that we're amending for $10,600, or do we do the $14,600 and later you take out the $4,000? Did you understand my question?
Yes. I think you can just do you can do it all together because their addendum that they will send over will incorporate both elements of it.
When you say do them all together, I can net out the 4,000. So I'm asking.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So then I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, thank you.
So I move that we,
Be specific.
were you ready?
Yes, be specific so everybody will understand.
I move that we make an amendment to the town budget and addendum to the existing contract with American Pool in an amount not to exceed $10,600 to provide maintenance and lifeguard coverage at the town pool for an extension of the pool season from May 8th to, is that right? To May 22nd. It's I wanted 2 weeks. Is that the right date?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, is that your motion?
And to approve use of the town pool. Let's see, do they get it all? Okay. And to approve use of the town pool for lifeguard training.
Did you want to add anything about the use of the masks?
No, I mean, I don't think, no, I think that's a separate
Okay,
motion.
fine. Okay, thank you. Before I get a second, Mr. Town Attorney, is that legally and technically sufficient?
Yes, it is, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So I think Councilmember Zuighauser was the second, right? Okay, now discussion. Councilmember Barr.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of the motion as presented, and I'll explain why. As I said, I see a reason for the town to very much support our kids in this because of the struggles that they have had during the pandemic, the schools being shut, and having the kids have 2 extra weeks free in the pool makes perfect sense to me. But I do not see the same reason for the town to support adults, although the adults enthusiastically want those 2 weeks. So I would prefer an amended motion in which adults pay a fee for those 2 weeks, but the children are free during those 2 weeks. And if you will accept that amendment, then I'll be happy, but absent that amendment, then
Okay, well,
I will vote against.
before you talk about it, you need to make a motion for an amendment and see if you even get a second.
Okay, well, the amendment is that we open the pool 2 weeks early as described in the motion, and that children, that is individuals in student status, go free, but adults pay a fee for those 2 weeks.
And is that, Mr. Town Attorney, is that legally and technically sufficient? And should the fee amount be in the amendment?
Yes, the fee amount should be in the amendment, Mr.
All
Mayor.
right, I'll make it $80 fee then for the 2 weeks for adults.
Okay, so is that motion, is that legally and technically sufficient?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, is there a second to that motion? Councilor Circo. So now discussion on the motion. Does anybody want to discuss the motion?
Sure, I thought we were going to go around.
No, not in this part of the.
Okay. So, like Robin, I fully, the town pool is one of the reasons why we moved to the town. The town pool is a wonderful asset, and we should maximize its use, in particular for the children. That said, I'm just extremely concerned about the town's finances. Our revenue drop has been so dramatic that we were told in one of the budget hearings that the Comptroller of Maryland suggested that we might need to increase our tax rate for the town. That's not a good sign. They said that was, the Budget Committee reported that was something they'd never heard happening before. And yes, I realize that there might be money in the fiscal year 20 budget to handle this. But it's not like that money disappears if we don't use it in the current fiscal year, fiscal year 21 budget. If we don't use it, it carries over into the next fiscal year. Everyone talks about the problems with the pool. I think we can anticipate having unexpected pool repairs. That costs additional money. And to the extent that this amendment helps minimize or distribute the cost of opening the pool early, I fully support it.
Okay, Councilor Zerri-Kessler.
Yeah, I really struggle with your amendment, Robin, because there are many people in town who are aging in place. And I think they would really be offended. Their children have been gone for maybe 40 years. And I think they would really be offended at this point that that they would have to pay to use the pool because they happen to be older. I find that I find that really insensitive to a large population, a large part of the population in town. I mean, either if you want to charge everyone, but to charge the elderly seems really unfair. It doesn't sit well with me.
That's an extraordinary statement, Barbara. First of all, I am a senior citizen myself.
I know.
But beyond that, I'm talking about all adults. Okay.
I understand that, but I'm talking about I'm talking about the population that's aging in place, that's on a fixed income, that's raised their children here, that's really enjoyed the community, that now all of a sudden, when the pool's going to open 2 weeks early, we're going to charge them. It just, and I might add, Steve, I think the first thing I voted on when I joined the council, and Jeffrey, you might recall this, was to raise the taxes. That was the first thing. I think that was my first vote on the council. They were, Jeffrey and Marnie might remember where they were back in the day, 12 years ago. But taxes do get raised. If you want services, if you have to raise taxes. If you don't want services, then you can keep the taxes as they are.
Barbara, again, I am saying that we charge a fee for 2 extra weeks. Everybody has the pool for the full season without charge.
Oh, I understand what you're saying.
Okay, then good. We got that clear then. That's fine.
Go ahead, Council President Shaw.
Maybe a question in part for Matt, but it seems to me that a number of adults who will be using the pool in that 2-week period will probably be lap swimmers who cover their costs through the fee that they pay. Is that correct?
That's it. So yes and no. I mean, the only lap swimmers who pay a fee are the ones that do morning swim.
Yeah, well, that's the ones I'm talking about.
And actually, I think there'll probably be a decent number of adults who would come and swim laps who don't do morning swim. And that would use the pool when the pool's in session. I'm sorry, when the school is in session, but the pool is open, that would come and swim laps and that don't participate in the morning swim. I will say that, you know, as myself, I would happily pay that fee in a second. I also understand exactly where Barbara's coming from. I would also point out, just in the consideration, and honestly, I'm in favor of whatever gets this, you know, the pool opened earlier. So in that regard, but we have water aerobics, which is an optional service that not everyone participates in, but if you participate in it, you pay a fee. We have the early bird swim, the morning swim, which is not open to all residents unless you pay a fee. I sort of can see where Robin is going in this, and that this is a 2-week extra that's not normal, in the same way that morning swim isn't normal, in the same way that water aerobics isn't normal. I personally would rather we just make it free for everyone, but if charging a fee, and I think a very reasonable one at that, you know, gets it so that we can open this pool 2 weeks earlier, I'd ask Robin maybe to amend it to say we charge a fee and increase the fee and make it 3 weeks earlier, but that's it.
That's not your. Is there further discussion on the amendment?
Yeah,
Councilman Repeal.
I guess I'd like to talk about the amendment a little bit. I think when you think about adult swimming as a separate concept from children's swimming, I think it becomes much more complicated when you remember that there's a whole category of children that cannot go swimming at the pool without an adult. So I just would want to point that out. You can't, you might have the children swimming for free, but they certainly are not allowed to go over there without an adult. So you're already talking about requiring adults to pay just in order to supervise the children at the pool. I remember when we first started talking about this concept, and I sort of raised the issue of, if we start opening the pool earlier, are we going to get down the road of feeling like this is something that we have to do every year? And the people who were on the budget call at the time, and I don't think Matt Zaff was on the call, but I know Ann said, we're really just talking about sort of a makeup year to make up for the fact that last year was so delayed and so unfortunate for everybody in the community. And so I don't think we're really talking about sort of a new expectation. At least I think we could make that clear, that this is sort of an unusual year and we're talking about an unusual solution for that. But I guess I just wanted to raise that, sort of charging a fee for that 2-week period, I think it just creates complications for people, for families and their children.
As I understand the way the booking system works, you would reserve time in the pool for yourself. And obviously, if there's somebody supervising you, that person is not in the pool. So therefore, you are, in fact, not being charged if you're not in the pool.
Well, except there are parents and caregivers who get in the water with the children. So it's not just a question of not just whether or not you're a nanny sitting in a chair. I mean, there's all sorts of combinations that could happen. It just gets a little bit tricky. I'm not sure, if it's worth it to chip away at that with sort of $80 a person, for the number of people who want to use it. I think if we're going to be generous and open the pool for the community, that we should not put strings on it.
Okay, is there further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? So the motion fails 2-3. And so now the original motion is on the table. Is there further discussion on which was council member?
Restate the original motion, please.
Mr. Town Manager, can you please restate the motion as introduced by Council President Shaw?
Yes. So the motion was to consider an addendum to the existing contract with American Pool in an amount not to exceed $10,300 to provide maintenance and lifeguard coverage at the town pool for an extension of the pool season from May 8th to May 22nd, and to approve the use of the town pool for lifeguard training.
Is that
10-6?
10-6. Thank you.
Is that, so Council President Shaw, that's the correct restating of your motion, correct? Okay, thank you.
As long as it's 10-6, yeah.
10-6. Thank you for that.
Good. Is there further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? So the motion carries 3-2.
Isn't a supermajority required for this motion?
So I think this is maybe what Ron was getting at when we amend the budget. So right now the council has approved me to sign off on an addendum. But at this point, we do not have the money to spend on that. Is that right, Ron? And so then now the next step would be an amendment to the existing budget to pay for the early opening, which would require a supermajority or four votes.
That's correct.
Okay, so now we will call the next agenda item. public hearing motion to consider an amendment to the existing FY 2021 budget to transfer $20,000 from the operating budget contingency to cover expenses related to the early opening of the Somerset Town Pool, including pool management fees and utility costs. Mr. Town Manager.
Yes, based on the last motion, the total would be $13,400 added to the pool budget, transferred from the operating budget contingency to cover those expenses. I have sort of already laid out the expenses, so I don't know if you need any more information from me at this time, but happy to answer questions if you do.
Okay, yes. And Mr. Town Attorney, do you want to add anything to that?
No, Mr. Mayor, that's sufficient.
Okay, thank you. Council President Shaw, do you have any questions?
Questions?
Thank you. Council Member Zoighauser.
No questions.
Thank you. Councilor Peel.
No questions.
Thank you. Councilor Circo.
No questions.
Thank you. Councilor Barr.
No questions.
Thank you. Mr. Town Manager, has any resident or guest indicated?
No, not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Council, are you prepared to make a motion?
I move that we amend the FY 2021 budget to transfer $13,400 from the operating budget contingency to cover expenses related to the early opening of the Somerset Town Pool, including pool management fees and utility costs.
Is there a second? I see Zoighauser, thank you. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? So the motion failed. Isn't a supermajority required, Mr. Town Attorney?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
So
So as a practical matter, the addendum would not be presented if it can't be funded.
So what is the process now?
Is it possible to propose another motion?
Yes. Yes.
All right. I will propose as a motion the amendment that previously failed, which is that we open the pool 2 weeks early, as described in the original motion, but adults pay a fee of $80 for that. I'll also amend that slightly to say that the early morning swimmers do not pay an additional fee during that time. It's a flat $80 fee.
Well, so wait a minute. I don't think, Mr. Town Attorney, that would have to be, that motion would have to, can only be made by someone that was on the prevailing side, because that addresses the contract, which has already been approved.
Well, the contract addendum has been approved, but the funding for that addendum was not approved. So as a practical matter, the approval of the addendum is a nullity because it can't be funded. So I would suggest that the council discuss and perhaps make another motion on an acceptable contract addendum that will be funded.
Could I propose a motion?
Hold on a second. So Council Member Barr's motion is legally and technically sufficient.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so is there a second to that motion? Okay, so Council Member Circo has seconded. Now is this discussion. So Council Member Peel, I think you wanted to talk.
Okay, so what we're now talking about, I guess, is we're talking about whether essentially to open the pool 2 weeks early with the $80 per adult fee with the exceptions that Robin mentioned. And I mean, I guess I was going to ask whether, how, we really don't have any way of knowing how much that will chip away at the expense of it. And I mean, another way to think about it would be to look at what we do know the estimates are on a week-to-week basis. And, you know, an alternative would be to talk about a different time frame. I mean, you know, what Robin's proposing, you know, we could have, we don't necessarily know how many people are going to come and pay this $80 fee. Right? You agree, right, Robin?
We don't know.
Right. So it's very difficult to get our hands around whether we'd be actually spending, you know,
it's true,
$9,000 or whether we'd be spending $7,000. We just don't know. I mean,
it's uncertain. It's
too
true.
variable because of the weather and the number and what people have going on.
Right. But I've heard enthusiasm for it from the adult community, and therefore I'm suggesting that it's probably going to raise some reasonable amount of money, given that enthusiasm.
Steve, I have a question for you. You were very concerned about doing something drastic and not having an article in the journal. Are you completely comfortable with all of a sudden charging a fee for adults to swim without having an article in the journal and without any publicity? You're muted.
Thank you. No, quite frankly, I'm not comfortable with any of this. I've been doing side emails with Matt, our town manager. He's been unable to find these articles in the journal. I've been looking in journals from October through February. I don't know what's been reached. And I'm not trying to assert that anyone's done anything wrong. I could easily be missing it, but I can't find them. Matt can't find them. So we're now struggling at the last minute trying to come up with some resolutions. I'd prefer to open up the pool a little early because I know a lot of people would like to do it. So I'm open to compromises. The other thing that Franny suggested was maybe looking at the time period, maybe just opening it 1 week early.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I would rather just keep it simple and open to everybody rather than go down the road of charging people $80. I just think it's going to feel like a nickel and diming move. I mean, people pay, as we know, high taxes to live here in this neighborhood, and the pool is something that everybody rightfully believes is, you know, a shared amenity. And I don't like the idea of essentially charging for access.
What I don't like about 1 week is we sacrifice the kids.
Right. Look, I mean, I think this is all so hard to predict anyway.
This way we protect the kids and charge the adults something for the privilege.
But again, I think it's going to be mostly people who are families who are bringing their kids as opposed to just kids coming on their own. So you're already talking about grown-ups having to pay just to bring their kids to the pool. And if it's between that and, I don't know, I just think, look, we're trying to make up for the fact that last year was such a disaster. A lot of it was not our fault, but in some cases, you know, the mechanical failures and everything, it was just unfortunate. And everybody was just so unhappy about it. And we're trying to make up for it this year by opening a little early, you know, on the recommendation of this committee, which has asked for May 1st. And now we're talking about whether or not we can even get to, you know, May 15th, whether we can afford to spend $7,000. Maybe I have that number wrong. It's getting late. But, you know, look, I think we all know we can afford to spend that kind of money. We don't spend our budget every year, and we have money in the budget that we've quibbled over every year. We always pad our budget categories. And, you know, we're now talking about whether it's 1 week or 2 week. I frankly do not want to get down the road of charging fees for adults. To me, that just feels like the wrong move. You know, it feels...
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
For your opinion.
So,
Madam President.
Well, I certainly understand the argument around user fees, but I think that, as was pointed out by someone else, that ought to be a fairly robust discussion in the town if we want to go down that route. So I don't really favor doing it for this 2 weeks and sort of introducing that concept. And the second thing I guess I would say is I would prefer that we pay attention to our software system and whether or not people who are supposed to get charged are actually paying, because I didn't use the pool at all last year. So this is not me, but several people have come to me and said, you know, I did early morning swim and I only got charged for half the summer. I went to water aerobics and I didn't get charged for a lot of the classes I went to. So I'd rather see us put our attention into actually making sure our software system covers the costs that people agreed to pay, rather than at the last minute, basically putting a fee on top of people.
I haven't heard another motion that would allow the pool to open 2 weeks early yet.
Well, if you want to block the pool from being open, Robin, that's your prerogative.
The question is, who is blocking it, Marnie? It sounds like you.
Right now, I'm confused, Robin. Can you please explain that statement?
Certainly, I'm offering that to vote for the pool being open 2 weeks early, provided that adults pay a fee of $80. And therefore, I am not blocking the pool being opened. What I'm trying to offer is a compromise here. I'm not hearing anybody willing to compromise, so I'm waiting to hear.
Well, we turned down this proposal before, Robin, so maybe you could come up with something different.
Okay, a $75 fee then.
Well, there's a motion on the table that you're discussing. You'd have to amend that if you wanted.
Oh, that it's an $80 fee is what's up there.
So is there further discussion? Is there further discussion on the motion? Do you all, and everybody understands the motion, correct? Okay, so hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, so the motion fails to.
I'll give it a try. I'll make a motion that we open the pool on March 15th with the various different qualifications that Marnie added to her May 8th.
Well, I think you need to be specific.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm getting very tired of.
Okay, so maybe.
I'm sorry. I guess I'll just make the motion that we approve. I guess I have to go back to approving an addendum to the pool contract, authorizing the spending to open the pool, sufficient to open the pool on May 15th. And then I guess we'll have to have a separate conversation about moving money for the budget.
Actually, I think if you, Franny, just did the addendum to the budget and only covered a week, that would accomplish sort of.
I thought there were some expenses in there that were more than just the pool opening, that like 13,400 or six.
Well, the basic expense was $7,300 a week for the pool contract, and then minus the 4,000, which would make it $3,300, and then $1,400 of town costs per week.
Okay. I've sort of lost track of what that all adds up to. I guess I'd like to propose moving, is that $9,000?
It's 4,700.
4,700.
Oh, 4,700. I don't know where okay. 47, okay, I'm going to propose that we transfer $4,700 from the contingency fund into the operating budget to cover opening the pool on May 15th and permitting the lifeguard training.
Okay, so before I ask for a second, Mr. Town Attorney, you stated that the motion that passed regarding the addendum to the contract was voided by the failure of the council to fund it. So is this motion now, this is legally and technically sufficient,
Yes,
correct?
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second to the motion? Okay, thank you. Now discussion on the motion. Is there no further discussion on the motion?
I'll just say, I support it. It's a modest cost for a full extra week. I think it's a good compromise.
Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you very much. The next item is public hearing motion to consider approval of renewing trash, recycling, and yard waste contract with Good Companies Incorporated for the option year 2021, June 2021 to May 2022 at an annual cost of $142,359. Mr. Town Manager.
Yes, I think the council has the information in front of them to discuss and consider this proposal. This would just opt the town into the option year for our contract with Good Company. The way that the contract was originally structured was 1 year and then 4 option years with the town. So this would be our second option year. The note that I added at the end is that this does not preclude the town from investigating other renewable pickup services such as dual stream or special recycling, as our contracts with contractors contains a severability clause that the town can execute.
Okay, thank you. Madam President, Madam Council President, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Thank you. Council Member Zuighauser.
No questions.
Thank you. Council Member Peel.
I think she had to.
She just stepped out for
a moment.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Council Member Circo.
No questions. Thank you.
Council Member Barr.
One question, do we have to do the same thing with the composting contract or not?
No, our composting contract was a 3-year contract, so it runs through this year.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Peel, did you have a question?
I apologize.
No problem.
I do.
We're on the good. We're on the good. We're on the good.
Yeah, I don't have any questions on this matter.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Town Manager, are there comments or questions from our residents or guests?
Not at this time, no, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Hearing none. Council, are you prepared to make a motion?
Yes. I move that the council approve renewing the trash, recycling, and yard waste contract with Goody Companies for the option year, June 2021, May 2022, at an annual cost of $142,359.
Is there a second? Thank you, Councilor Zuighauser. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you. The next item, public hearing motion to consider bulk trash pickup and donation pickup with Good, Donation Nation, and a wider circle on the following schedule as listed in your program. Mr. Town Manager, do you have anything to add to that?
No, pretty
Thank you.
straightforward.
Council President Shaw, do you have any questions?
No questions. Thanks for getting lots of options for people.
Thank you. Council Member Zuighauser, do you have any
Agreed.
questions?
No questions. Many thanks, Matt.
Thank you. Councilor Peel.
No questions.
Councilmember Circo.
No questions.
Councilmember Barr.
No questions.
Mr. Town Manager, has a resident or guest indicated they wish to speak?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Council, are you prepared to make a motion?
I move that we approve the bulk trash pickup and donation pickup as listed on the agenda.
Thank you. I see Zuighauser made a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you. The next item, public hearing motion to consider approval of a resolution to declare a climate emergency as recommended by by the Environment Committee. Mr. Town Manager, can you briefly present this?
Yes, our Environment Committee Chair is not here, but again, this is relatively straightforward. This is a short resolution that is essentially just recognizing climate change as a result of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and just a resolution that the town recognizes that issue.
Thank you, Council President Shaw. Do you have any questions?
No questions.
Thank you, Council Member Zoidhauser.
No questions.
Councilor Peel.
No.
Councilmember Circo.
No questions.
Thank you, Councilor Barr.
No questions.
Thank you. Mr. Town Manager, has any resident or guest indicated they wish to speak regarding?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Council. Are you prepared to make a motion?
If I may, I move that the council approve or declare a climate emergency. This will enable the Environment Committee to proceed with their next phase of analysis.
Thank you. Is there a second? I see Councilor Barr. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you. The next item, public hearing motion to consider adoption of Resolution 321-1, a resolution adopting election rules and regulations as recommended by the Board of Supervisors of Elections. And the town manager will briefly introduce it, and then our distinguished chair of the Board of Supervisors of Elections, the board met today, and I believe they have a comment or an recommended amendment. So I'll turn it over to Matt first.
So the council has introduced these election rules. This is to adopt them. As the mayor stated, the Board of Supervisors of Election did meet after recognizing there were a few small edits that they recommended relating to who's responsible for getting the voter list, small things like that. But with that, I'm happy to turn it over to Sherry.
Hi. Yes, so we, after taking a closer look, there are just a couple of amendments to the proposed regulations that you considered or we submitted at the last meeting. The first one would be in paragraph 4. And what we wanted to do is just add one example to temporarily absent residents. And it says now, including but not limited to college students, travelers on vacation, property owners temporarily residing in a seasonal or second home. We're proposing to add those serving in the military. And then it goes on to say, and persons receiving medical or hospice care. The reason for this is that last year, this issue came up, and although this list is, as it says, it's not exclusive, it's including but not limited to. One of the board members thought it would be a good idea to address this specifically so that the question wouldn't arise again this year. The next amendment that we're proposing is in paragraph 15. The way we had drafted it, that we submitted last time, said that the town manager shall request from the County Board of Elections a certified list of registered voters who reside within the town at least 30 days prior to a town election. We're proposing that instead of the responsibility resting with the town manager, it would be the responsibility of the Board of Supervisors of Elections. So the last sentence would begin, the Board of Supervisors of Elections shall request from the County Board of Elections, etc. That's right, it's on the screen now. Yeah, you'll see our proposed changes highlighted in green. And then finally, in paragraph 16, we are proposing to strike voter rolls because it was just confusing. The way it was written, it said the voter rolls or voter registration list shall be available for inspection. But we think that the intention really was that it was referring just to the voter registration lists. So we're proposing striking the voter rolls or. Those are the only
Thank you. I want to applaud you for the professional manner in which you have reviewed the rules and regulations. Mr. Town Attorney, do you wish to add anything before I ask for questions from the council?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Council President Shaw, do you have any questions?
Questions?
Thank you. Council Member Zoidgazer.
No questions.
Thank you. Council Member Peel.
No questions.
Thank you. Council Member Circo.
No questions.
Council Member Barr.
No questions.
Mr. Town Manager, has any resident or guests indicated they wish
No,
to
Mr. Mayor.
speak on this? Thank you. Council, are you prepared to make a motion?
Move that we approve Resolution 3-21-1 as amended, a resolution adopting election rules and regulations as recommended by the Board of Supervisors of Elections.
I'll second.
So is that, Mr. Town Attorney, is that sufficient a motion to include today's recommendations of the board?
It is, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Council, I saw Councilmember Zoidgazer. Second, thank you. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you so much. Thank you again to the Board of Supervisors of Elections. The next item is public hearing motion to consider the purchase of replacement netting for the town batting cage in an amount not to exceed $1,850. Mr. Town Manager.
Yes, this request came from a couple of residents directly to the council during budget discussions. And these residents obtained a couple of quotes to repair the batting cages. This is only to repair the netting, not to repair or replace the old pitching machines, but just to make the netting and the batting cages back in working order for folks that want to play toss in there. Happy to answer any other specific questions, but that's the gist.
Council President Shaw, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Thank you. Council Member Zoidgazer. Councilmember Peel.
No questions, but I'll just remind Matt that we did approve the removal of the machine itself. If you want to put any of the maintenance guys to work on removing the shed and the machine itself, it doesn't need to be there. And if you're going to put the new nets up anyway and do any landscaping there, you might as well go ahead and take it down.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Circo. Do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Barr.
No questions.
Thank you. Mr. Town Manager, has any resident or guest indicated they wish to speak?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Council, are you prepared to make a motion?
For some reason, I didn't hear you, Marnie.
I asked Franny if she wanted to make this motion.
I'd be happy to, except that I didn't write down the dollar amount.
1850.
1850. Okay, I make a motion that we approve $1,850 for the purchase of new netting for the batting cage.
Second.
Thank you.
Is there discussion? Might I ask one question? Is this amount is contained in the current budget, right?
No, this would also require a budget amendment.
Okay, so
Is that because we don't have the money for ordinary repairs?
Last year, we decided to remove the budgeted money for repairs to the batting cage.
Which would include.
in order to pass the, so Mr. Town Attorney, in order to pass this, it's going to require, doesn't it also require moving an accompanying motion to move the money from somewhere?
Can I withdraw my motion then and start instead with a motion to amend the budget? Because I don't want to go down the road of approving the spending if we can't approve the budget amendment.
Well, so is there unanimous consent to take this off the table? Everybody raise their hand. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the budget to transfer, except I need Matt to tell me where to transfer that money from.
Operating budget contingency.
Transfer money from $1,850 from the operating contingency into the batting cage line item so that we can purchase new netting for the batting cage.
Is there a second? I see Bar. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, one, okay. Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. The next item is,
Just
I believe,
she has to do the batting cage. She only did the budget.
oh, right, I'm sorry.
I thought I said that it was for the purchase of new netting for the batting cage. Was that not
Can you do it all in one?
Mr.
I
Town
thought I
Attorney,
had done that.
I think the town attorney ruled that she was doing that all in one.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
And Matt, can you say what the vote was on that?
4-1.
It was 4-1. Councilmember Circo voted against.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and I think.
I'd like to make a motion at this point to move into a closed session. I'm going to need Ron's help with the exact wording for this, but this is for
It's to discuss a personnel matter.
yeah, but there's a number that it goes with it, but for the purpose of discussing a personnel issue. And I know that there's some wording that goes with that.
So is this for evaluation?
Well, I think it technically.
Financial issue.
I think technically it is because it involves the compensation for an employee.
Okay, great. Yeah, so it would be a motion to enter a closed session pursuant to section 3305B1 to discuss the compensation of an employee over whom the council has jurisdiction.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
And Mr. Mayor, are we not doing the ordinance for HVAC? Are we?
No, then we're going
No,
to.
we haven't gotten, we've got a couple more things still. I'm
Okay.
inserting this.
My apologies. Okay.
So,
Going back to the public side.
so is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none. So the idea is that we will meet in executive session with the town attorney. Everybody will be dismissed. And then how are we going to notify everybody, Mr. Town?
I can put people in the waiting room and then readmit them.
Okay,
with the council.
But you're not going to be in the meeting, Matt.
Including.
I can make somebody else the host.
Make Ron the host.
Oh, gosh, I don't know how to do that.
Barbara does, don't you, Barbara?
Robin has experience with Zoom. I
Robin will be the host.
I can volunteer Robin.
Okay.
Sure.
But anyway, we haven't voted yet. So you haven't voted yet. So all those in favor of going to executive session, raise. Okay, thank you. So we will now go in executive session and Matt will take everybody into the waiting room.
You're transferring host to me?
Yes.
Okay.
There's probably a less painstaking way to do this, but alas. And I suppose, Ron, the recording should be paused or should the recording continue?
Yeah, pause the recording, please.
All right.
So
We're now recording.
okay. He just said okay, so.
But I mean, we can proceed without him if you're comfortable doing that.
Are you having trouble getting back in?
No. I just had trouble finding
Oh, here he is. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you to our residents and guests for your patience during that brief but required executive session. The next item is a motion to consider introduction of an ordinance adopting the town of Somerset fiscal year 2022 budget and tax rates. Council President Shaw.
I just moved to introduce it.
Yeah, it's
Right.
just a motion.
Okay, right. So I would like to move the introduction of an ordinance adopting the town of Somerset fiscal year 2022 budget and tax rates. We have a draft. I'd like to make an amendment to the draft in line 75 for fiscal year 2022, changing the number of 108, 150 to 110.
Okay, is that, Mr. Town Attorney, is that legally and technically sufficient?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
So that requires a second, correct?
Yes.
I'll second.
I think I saw Councilmember Zuighauser first. And then we have discussion and vote. That's it, right? Is there
Correct.
discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you very much. We are taking this to the next level of professionalism. The next item is a motion to consider introduction of an ordinance to amend the HVAC unit review process, which I believe is Council Member Peel.
Yes, I'm introducing an ordinance to amend the building regulations in order to allow administrative approval for the replacement of air conditioning units that are located in the same spot as original units or that are not up. Wait, where did I put that? Let's see. Administrative approval of air conditioning units that are not otherwise the subject of a building permit application for new construction of a house or an addition or in a different look. I'm sorry, Matt.
Or a different location. That's
Or a
right.
different location. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I
Is there?
can restate that if that was confusing. We talked about
Excellent.
this before,
Thank you.
and this is the ordinance to amend the code to reflect our understanding.
Thank you. Is there a second? I saw Shaw first. Thank you. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? So as you know, both of those introductions will go through the process now and will be on a future agenda. And our last item of the evening is the manager's report.
Mr. Mayor, might I suggest that we consider putting that at the end of tomorrow night's meeting? We are already at 10:30.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, everyone. It was an
Good
excellent.
night. See you tomorrow.
I hope you didn't scare. I hope you didn't
I
scare
know.
all those.
Good night,
I'm
everyone.
worried about.
I hope they don't withdraw, but
Please
it was
don't.
actually it was a very good meeting with excellent debate and compromise. And I'm sure that the new council members will carry on in that tradition. See you tomorrow.